Chapter 4:14. Bailishi smiled faintly and said, "This brat is always full of surprises." "Bailishi, do you know that youth?" one of Bailishi's companions asked. Bailishi's smile did not change. He nodded gently and said, "I do. He is the white-robed bladesman. Let's not keep an eye on the battlefield and follow behind this brat. I guarantee that we will not be in any danger and gain some benefit." "Is that true?" Bailishi laughed loudly and said, "It is up to you whether you believe me or not. I will only say one thing. The biggest winner of Qianren Island is this brat. Even the bloody bladesman and slaughterer of 1,000 did not obtain as many benefits as he did." The people behind him whispered to each other. They had disapproving expressions on their faces. Clearly, they did not believe Bailishi's words. However, Bailishi laughed loudly and ignored the expressions of these people. No matter what they thought, he had already made up his mind. The battle in the arena was still incomparably intense. The energy whirlpools stirred up violent gales that never stopped. Everyone was anxiously waiting for the moment when the battle would end. Just at this moment, another miserable shriek came from the battlefield. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Another half-step martial monarch had died. The peak superior grade blood demons are indeed horrifying. Unexpectedly, 2 of the half-step martial monarchs who normally roam around died today. These half-step martial monarchs are really not afraid of death. When they saw a peak superior grade blood demon, they should have left quickly. It would be a pity if they died. What do you know? Half-step martial monarchs are not true martial monarchs. In order to become a martial monarch, aside from the various barriers and essence, the most important thing is to open the sea of consciousness and strengthen their mental energy. If their mental energy does not reach a certain level, they will never be able to break through the barrier to martial monarch. Several of them are reaching the end of their lifespans. If they do not stake it all, they will not have another chance. After the death of another half-step martial monarch, the battlefield, which had been silent for a while, resounded with discussions again. Secret manuals for tempering mental energy are the rarest secret manuals in the continent. There are not many of them. If you want to quickly strengthen your mental strength, you can only rely on external objects. This Blood Devil's Monster Core is a kind of external object that can train mental strength. Peak superior grade blood demons normally only appear in the core zone of the demon battlefield. That is a place that even martial monarchs do not dare to casually enter. Now, they can run into a peak superior grade blood demon in the inner area. Do you think they will give up? When the cultivator who questioned Xiao Chen earlier heard this, he finally understood why this group of half-step martial monarchs and above were fighting so hard. When Xiao Chen heard this, he fell into deep thought. My time is almost up. If I don't give it my all, I really won't have a chance. Hence, even though they knew that it was very dangerous, even if they eliminated the blood demons and faced many cultivators with ill intentions, these half-step martial monarchs had no other choice but to fight to the end. As time went by, another 3 half-step martial monarchs died. The number of people on the other side decreased from 18 to 13. After fighting for such a long time, the aura of the peak superior grade blood demon had weakened significantly. Its initial berserk aura soared into the sky. Even people 10 kilometers away could feel its aura. Now, the crowd at the 2-kilometer mark no longer felt any pressure. The sun set in the west, and the blood demon's time was almost up. In the end, a peak superior grade blood demon could not deal with close to 20 half-step martial monarchs. In the center of the battlefield, an old man in black robes exuding an incredibly strong aura held a sword in his hand. With a stern expression, he said, "It's about time. The few of us will stop it from self-detonating. Old Go, Old Huang, Elder, and Old Mu, I will leave the cultivators who will arrive to you." After a pause, the old man continued, "I will hold on to the demon core for now. After this, we will split it evenly. Does anyone have any objections?" "Old Qin, don't worry. Everyone still believes in the holy fire manor's reputation, the 6 people who were named answered. Clearly, they trusted the old man. In reality, this was not the first time this group of people had come to the demon battlefield. Every time, Old Sheen had been the one in charge. This old man's prestige and the power behind him guaranteed that they would not fight amongst themselves or kill each other. Hence, they trusted this old man. A black-robed blood demon surrounded by a few people gave off black smoke. A baleful aura radiated from his eyes as he roared angrily. He tried to use a secret technique to escape several times, but his escape route was blocked. The horrifying wounds of various sizes on the blood demon's body healed quickly. However, the rate of recovery was not as fast as the number of wounds increased. Horrifying killing moves containing overwhelming energy bombarded the blood demon's body. His life force drained rapidly. His time was almost up. I am not satisfied. I spent 1,000 years to make a breakthrough. You bunch of lowly humans caused my 1,000 years of hard work to go to waste. If I die, let's all die together. The black-robed blood demon said with a ferocious expression. His skin started to swell up quickly. Old Sheen's expression did not change. His deep eyes were like an ancient well. He said calmly, "Very good. He is going to self-detonate. Attack." Boom, boom, boom. A strong energy burst forth from the center of the battlefield. The red clouds in the sky churned continuously, forming a scarlet whirlpool. A strong wind blew from the whirlpool, making it hard for the crowd to keep their eyes open. An overwhelming baleful aura was hidden in the wind. It was like an evil spirit lingering around the crowd. Those who were not mentally strong would collapse on the spot. That blood demon is going to self-detonate. Sensing the monstrous energy, the crowd started to get excited. It was finally over. No matter what the result was, the group of half-step martial monarchs would be exhausted. At that time, they would not be able to block so many people. However, just as the energy was about to reach its peak, 10 resplendent lights of various colors lit up below the whirlpool. When the lights faded, the whirlpool above them vanished without a trace. The battle was over. The strong wind that had been sweeping the battlefield for a long time finally stopped, and the dust settled. Xiao Qin muttered to himself, the self-detonation was stopped. It looks like this group of half-step martial monarchs came prepared. Boom. Just at this moment, when the dust settled completely, the blood demon suddenly shot out beams of dazzling light. They were all sorts of secret treasures flying through the air. Xiao Qin counted them roughly. There were at least 100 secret treasures. 2 or 3 of them were rare medial-grade secret treasures. Secret treasures could only be used by humans. Fiendish demons collected secret treasures to attract the attention of humans and kill them. If they wanted to attract more humans and consume their hearts to increase their strength, they needed a sufficient number of secret treasures. Normally, the strong blood demons would hide a horrifying number of secret treasures. It's a secret treasure. He truly lives up to his reputation as a peak high-rank blood demon. He actually collected so many secret treasures. Ha ha! Indeed, we did not wait in vain. With so many secret treasures, everything is worth it. Quickly attack. The blood demon is already dead. If we do not attack now, there will be no more opportunities. The surrounding cultivators, who had been preparing for a long time, naturally did not want to miss this rare opportunity. If the group of half-step martial monarchs reacted, it would be too late. Xiao! 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 Countless figures rushed towards the center of the battlefield. All the cultivators had excited expressions on their faces, as if they could obtain secret treasures with a wave of their hands. The peak superior grade martial kings in the air charged towards the ground. Relying on their geographical advantage, they were ahead of everyone else. As Xiao Qin stood on the eagle, his expression remained calm. He did not rush forward with the crowd. Bai Lishi was already infected by the atmosphere of the crowd. Just as he was about to rush forward, he saw the stunned Xiao Qin. So, He stopped as well. Bai Lishi, let's go quickly. If we are any slower, we will not be able to snatch anything. Indeed. Although there are many secret treasures, there are even more cultivators. If we are late, we will not even be able to snatch the lowest-ranked secret treasure. Bai Lishi had a resolute gaze as he said, "There is no need. You all go first. Be careful. Those half-step martial monarchs are not to be trifled with." Bai Lishi, you are too timid. Half-step martial monarchs are indeed scary. Let's see how capable these half-step martial monarchs are. How can they block so many of us? Ha ha. In that case we will go first. You can wait on your own. When the time comes and you do not obtain anything, don't get jealous. The group laughed loudly and quickly flew forward. They did not take Bai Lishi's words to heart. Bai Lishi smiled bitterly and did not say anything. After all, he trusted his intuition. Since Xiao Chun had not made a move, he must have his reasons. So. Just as the crowd was about a kilometer away, 6 old men suddenly appeared. These people were expressionless, and their clothes fluttered without any wind. Their auras were terrifyingly strong. They did not seem like cultivators who had been exhausted for a long time. It seemed like they had been conserving their energy and had not exhausted themselves at all. When their auras merged, it was like a tall mountain blocking the path, suppressing everyone until they could not breathe. Oh no! These are peak half-step martial monarchs. When the peak superior grade martial kings felt the auras of the 6 people, they did not hesitate to retreat. Strong wind, lightning, cold ice, raging flame, earth wall, white fog. 6 different states spread out wildly from the 6 half-step martial monarchs. In the blink of an eye, the energy storm that had already stopped raging once again. All kinds of energy burned together, and even the air became a killing weapon, exploding non-stop. Hundreds of cultivators could not retreat in time and bore the brunt of the attack. The berserk energy immediately tore them to shreds. The few cultivators who managed to escape were severely injured as well. Their flesh split open and they fell to the ground. Only a few cultivators with peak inferior grade defensive secret treasures managed to escape unscathed. However, those secret treasures were completely shattered. They no longer had any value to use. This was a heart-wrenching sight. Because Bai Lishi's companions had arrived rather late, they did not notice the situation in front of them. By the time they arrived, they happened to run into the first wave of the strongest attack. They did not even have a chance to retreat before they were blasted into smithereens. They could not be any more dead. Half-step martial monarch. What was a half-step martial monarch? It was someone who had been a martial king for a long time. Their state and essence had already reached the peak of the martial king realm. Chapter 4:15. As long as one's mental energy was sufficient to open their sea of consciousness, they could immediately advance to martial monarch. They would be considered one of the top experts in the entire continent. Experts of such cultivation would raise their states and cultivation to their limit. Unless they were martial monarchs, no one would be a match for them. Killing medial-grade martial kings and superior-grade martial kings would be as easy as killing pigs or dogs. At this moment, the only thing they feared was the peak superior-grade martial kings in the air. As for the others, it was not a matter of quantity but quality. No matter how many came, it would be useless. Boom! 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 The 6 old men moved forward 100 meters and attacked again. With all sorts of peak states, their normally simple martial techniques became fatal moves. Several cultivators died on the spot. The old man in the middle immediately stopped. When he saw the peak superior grade martial kings in the air, whose auras were raised to their limits, he frowned slightly and muttered, "Everyone, just go back to where you came from. Things that are not yours, so don't think about reaping without sowing. Otherwise, I don't need to explain the consequences." The 100 peak martial kings in the air were expressionless as they looked at the secret treasures flying around. Clearly, they did not want to leave. One of them smiled coldly and said, "Unexpectedly, There are still 6 of you who have not made a move yet. No wonder a newly advanced peak high-rank blood demon could kill 3 of you. However, if the 6 of you want to monopolize all these secret treasures, it is not enough. That's right. At worst, we will fight to the death. No one will obtain them. The baleful aura of a peak superior grade blood demon's demon core is overwhelming. Without strong willpower, it would be difficult to extract it. If you do not let us take the secret treasures, we will not let you take the demon core. That's right. You can just take the demon core. If you want us not to take the secret treasures, that is impossible. It is impossible to return empty-handed. The 100 peak superior grade martial kings in the air withdrew their auras and argued with each other. Immediately, both sides entered a stalemate. If no one gave way, an even more intense battle would ensue. The medial grade martial kings and ordinary superior grade martial kings had already been frightened out of their wits, so they retreated 2 kilometers. When these peak superior grade martial kings saw the 100 peak superior grade martial kings, their thoughts started to stir. As they looked at the secret treasures flying around, their eyes revealed a desire. When Bailishi saw the earlier situation, he heaved a sigh of relief. He cultivated his physical body. Before he reached the great accomplishment stage, it would be difficult for him to match up to other martial artists in terms of speed. If he really charged in, even if he could retreat, he would be left with a body full of injuries. Xiao Chun looked at the secret treasures flying through the air, focusing on the 3 medial grade secret treasures. The other inferior grade secret treasures were no longer worth his attention. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense had been lingering in the middle of that group of people. When old Qin opened his mouth to let the 6 of them pay attention, Xiao Chen's spiritual sense immediately sensed the state of these 6 people. His goal was to prevent the current situation. It could only be said that this person called Old Qin was very decisive. Even if some people died, he still wanted to preserve the strength of the 6 people. Presumably, the power behind him must be very strong. Otherwise, if they could not suppress these 6 people, they would be in big trouble. Looking at the 3 medial grade secret treasures in the air, then looking at the group of people negotiating anxiously, Xiao Chun took out a sculpture from his universe ring. A plan formed in his mind. There was a deep red demon core in the middle of the blood demon's corpse. It gave off a strange red light, dyeing the surroundings scarlet. At the same time, there was a faintly discernible barrier that entangled in the void. 100 meters away from the demon core, Old Qin and the other 10 people all had some bloody wounds on their bodies. However, their eyes revealed a fiery glow on their fatigued faces. They were clearly very excited. However, they still retained their rationality. They did not let their desires get to their heads. One of them said worriedly, "Old Qin, you exhausted most of your essence. Furthermore, you are injured. Can you withstand the impact of the baleful aura?" This blood demon died with a lot of resentment. "I think the impact of the baleful aura from his demon core is even stronger than that of a peak high-rank blood demon's demon core," another person said. Old Qin snorted coldly. "If you think your mental energy is stronger than mine, you can go and take it yourself. There is no need to speak nonsense with me." When the others heard this, they quickly said, "Old Qin, that is not what we meant. Naturally, your mental energy is the strongest among us. We are just a little worried." When Old Qin heard this, he smiled coldly and said, "This old man's mental energy is only 1 step away from opening the sea of consciousness. I should be able to do it if I put in some effort." Just as Xiao Chen was about to step into the red light, Old Qin heard the conversation between the group of peak superior grade martial kings and Old Go. His expression turned somewhat hostile. "Tell Old Go to just take the 3 medial grade secret treasures. Leave the rest to them. After we deal with the matter here, we will make them spit it out 100-fold. For now, we will let them off easy." After Old Qin spoke, he stepped into the red light without looking back. The moment he entered, countless illusions appeared before his eyes. All sorts of horrifying scenes appeared before old Qin's eyes like an Azura's hell. It was hard to tell the real from the fake. It felt like he would be swallowed up by evil spirits in the next moment. Old Qin's expression remained calm. His eyes were calm. He turned his mental energy into a sharp blade and chopped down all the illusions. However, that baleful aura was very difficult to deal with. Old Qin's mental energy could not completely destroy it. Evil spirits, Azura, and vengeful spirits continued to appear. Even though Old Qin was only 100 meters away, he had to take each step with great difficulty. Sweat poured down his forehead continuously. Clearly, Old Qin was not having an easy time. The 100-peak superior grade martial kings in the air stared at the 6 grave and stern old men on the ground. The old men withdrew their auras and grasped their saber hilts tightly to prevent the 6 from suddenly attacking. No matter what, the other party was a half-step martial monarch expert. In a one-on-one fight, none of them could last more than 100 moves against the old men. It would even be difficult for them to escape unscathed. The only thing they could rely on was their advantage in numbers. As for the cultivators on the ground who had retreated far away, they were not strong enough to last more than 100 moves against the old men. Before a half-step martial monarch, Xiao Chen's strength was insufficient. He did not even have the capital to negotiate. In reality, these people had not expected that there would be 6 half-step martial monarchs who were not exhausted at all. Otherwise, they would not have charged forward so recklessly. Hurry up and make your decision. Give us the secret treasures and the demon cores. Stop delaying, a peak martial king in the air said impatiently. He felt somewhat uneasy in his heart. If they obtained the peak high-rank blood demon's demon core, they would have nothing to fear. There would be nothing that could threaten the other party. Hurry up and make your decision. Stop dilly-dallying. Stop delaying. At worst, we will just break up. No one will benefit. You can forget about advancing to martial monarch in this lifetime. The peak superior grade martial kings in the air slowly lost their patience. If they continued waiting, they would not be able to obtain anything. Scram quickly. If you take another step forward, we will kill you without mercy. The 6 old men wore cold expressions as they faced the pressure from these people. They had no intention of retreating. More than 100 secret treasures would be a great fortune. How could they just give them up like that? Furthermore, there were 3 medial-grade secret treasures. Even these half-step martial monarchs did not have medial-grade secret treasures. All the more they could not give them up. The smell of gunpowder in the air started to build. Both sides were on the verge of breaking out. The atmosphere seemed like it would go out of control at any moment. Just at this moment, an old man quickly rushed over and whispered something into the ears of the old man with the family name Go. Old Ji's expression changed slightly. He muttered to himself for a while before saying to the people in the air, aside from the 3 medial-grade secret treasures, the rest are yours. You are too naive. 1 medial-grade secret treasure is equivalent to dozens of inferior-grade secret treasures. Do you think we are fools? You really want to take all the benefits for yourselves, treating us like monkeys. The crowd could not take this lying down. A few cultivators with fiery tempers could not resist making a move. Old Ji's expression turned grave. He said coldly, "What are you thinking of doing? Don't be reckless." Chi. Just at this moment, the cry of an eagle came from the sky. It sounded very loud, as if it was trying to attract everyone's attention. All the cultivators, including the 7 half-step martial monarchs, could not help but look up. They only saw an eagle spreading its wings and casting a large shadow. It quickly flew towards the secret treasures in the air. It's that white-robed brat. He is going to snatch the secret treasures. Is he crazy? Someone below exclaimed. Old Ji's expression changed drastically. Killing chi surged from his entire body, and the surrounding air stirred up. Strong winds blew as he said coldly, "You are seeking death." Old Gu waved his hand, and an extremely dense energy shot out. Boom! Boom! The remaining 6 half-step martial monarchs made their move almost at the same time as Old Go. Sharp attacks rained down like a torrential storm. At the same time, the peak superior grade martial kings in the air started cursing. This brat is too dishonest. Unexpectedly, he dares to snatch the secret treasures alone before everyone else. All sorts of killing moves were unleashed at the same time. Hundreds and thousands of condensed attacks surged toward Song Ying in an instant. Ice, flames, saber chi, sword chi, fist winds, sword lights, all sorts of killing moves were launched. Even if a true half-step martial monarch arrived, he would have to dodge and not clash head-on with such a large number of attacks. This was the principle of ants biting an elephant to death. Furthermore, Xiao Chen was not an elephant. Hence, in the crowd's opinion, unless Xiao Chen was crazy, he would not do something that attracted all the attacks. The goshawk, which was carved from stone, was instantly smashed into stone chips by countless fierce attacks. Then, it turned from stone chips into ashes and completely disappeared from this world. However, there was no one on the eagle. There were only 3 incredibly nimble wooden sculptures. The instant the eagle shattered, the chaotic and strong energy tossed them high into the air. The thumb-sized wooden sculpture was almost weightless. The shockwave from the explosion sent the 3 wooden sculptures flying several kilometers into the sky, far away from the horrifying energy attack. Is he dead? With so many attacks, not even dregs are left of this brat. Chapter 4:16. If I can survive this, I will dig out my own eyes. Ha ha. You really know how to pick an opportunity to say that. However, this brat does not have a chance to live. It looks like there is no need to dig out your eyes. This brat is crazy. Does he really think that he can get away by playing some tricks? If he could, we would have gone long ago. How could it be his turn? This is the result of trying to be smart. He will die without a complete corpse. This is a very realistic lesson. Looking at the resplendent sky that was exploding like fireworks, everyone sighed with emotion. When all the energy scattered and the blurry sky became quiet again, there were 3 white figures flashing in the air. 3 white figures flashed in the air, each heading for a medial grade secret treasure. These 3 people wore white robes and had fair skin. They were handsome and had delicate features. There was a blue strip of cloth on their heads and a saber at their waist. Who else could it be but that Xiao Chen? Damn it! How can this be? Not only did he not die, he even turned into 3 people. The people below were shocked. Their mouths gaped open as they cried out in shock. Their eyeballs nearly fell out of their sockets. They could not understand what was going on. Even a martial monarch expert could not withstand such an attack. How could he, an insignificant inferior grade martial king, obtain it unscathed? This was too illogical. It completely surpassed everyone's imagination. The cultivator who said he would dig out his own eyes had an expression of horror on his face. How can this be? How can this be? Shadow doppelganger technique, chase. We cannot let him take away the secret treasures. When Old Gus saw the white figures about to obtain the medial grade secret treasures, he was furious. He kicked up a strong wind and soared into the sky. The 3 Xiao Chen figures in the air grasped the medial grade secret treasures tightly. They smiled faintly and executed the roaming dragon's 9 transformations. Instantly, the 3 figures turned into 27 figures. Wukue transforms to Qi. The sabers danced around, and a purple light flickered. Boundless purple saber Qi flew in the air without any pattern. They spread out over a large area like a torrential storm. When the secret treasures in the air were struck by the saber Qi, they immediately fell to the ground like rain. Secret treasures! When the secret treasures appeared, all the cultivators recovered their wits and started fighting over them. The scene immediately turned extremely chaotic. The wooden sculpture Xiao Chen smiled in satisfaction. Immediately, the 27 figures all laughed as well. Bang! Bang! Old Goose swept out with his palm and shattered 7 clones in an instant. The remaining 27 clones quickly dove into the crowd. Under the cover of the clones, the 3 Shao Chens with medial-grade secret treasures found 3 desolate cracks in the rock. Then, they turned into wooden sculptures and hid in the cracks with the secret treasures. The palm-sized artifact and thumb-sized wooden sculpture were hidden in a small crack in the stone. With the current chaotic situation, no one would notice them at all. The spiritual wood returned to the wooden sculpture. Shao Chen's fleeing clones immediately lost the support of energy, vanishing into thin air. Shao the Divine. Shao 222222222 they. 222. 2222 Shao 222. 222222222. Occasionally, miserable cries came from the crowd of several hundred people as they fought over the secret treasures falling from the sky. Even the originally calm peak superior grade martial kings could no longer endure. Shao Chun had completely disrupted the situation. They could not find Shao Chun. If they did not go down to snatch the secret treasures, not only would they fail to obtain the medial grade secret treasures, but they would also lose all the inferior grade secret treasures. Old Go, what do you think? The 7 half-step martial monarchs continued to stand in the air, carefully scanning the surroundings. Old Ji's expression turned sullen. He said somewhat irritably, Old Qin said that we must obtain these 3 secret treasures. If we cannot protect them, we will not get any demon cores. What do you think we should do? The reason why Old Qin had them stay back to recuperate and build up their strength was because of this situation. This was originally a simple matter, but now they had completely messed it up. When they thought about it, they felt that they had no hope of getting any demon cores. They could not help but feel depressed. Don't make that expression. Split up and give chase. There is still a chance. I don't believe that this brat, an inferior grade martial king, can run that fast. Old Goose snorted coldly and headed south. He moved as fast as lightning, and in an instant, he was far away. The others perked up and flew out to investigate. Naturally, these people would not be able to catch up to Shao Chun. If they got his location wrong, it would be useless no matter how fast they were. The faster they flew, the more wrong they would be. Even if they managed to find Shao Chen's location, they would only be 3 pieces of wood. In that case, where was the real Shao Chen? In the boundless scarlet clouds in the sky, where even the air seemed to be frozen, Shao Chen's true body was hidden in the drifting scarlet clouds. The scarlet clouds contained all sorts of horrifying negative states. Shao Chen used his spiritual sense to form a tight barrier around himself to prevent these states from attacking him. The scarlet clouds were formed from the corpse qi, baleful qi, the resentment of the dead, the demonic qi of the fiendish demons, and the qi of massacre. One needed extremely strong mental energy to hide in the scarlet clouds. Otherwise, even a half-step martial monarch would not dare to hide in the scarlet clouds. Below Shao Chen was the core of the earlier battlefield. The corpse of the blood demon lay there quietly. Its dark red demon core gave off a viscous red light. Old Qin's wrinkled face looked very fatigued. He walked with great difficulty in the scarlet light. The distance of 100 meters was like a rugged heavenly road. He had barely covered half of it. Behind the scarlet light, 10 half-step martial monarchs stood in a circle, guarding the area. To them, they could lose the secret treasures if they had no other choice. However, they could not lose the peak high-rank blood demon's demon core. They could not afford to lose it. The demon core was their hope of advancing to martial monarch. It would be impossible for them to meet a peak high-rank blood demon in the inner area of the demon battlefield in the future. Shao Chen raised his head and looked at the chaotic scene a kilometer behind them. 6 half-step martial monarchs were scattered in the air, trying to chase after Shao Chen's clones. Shao Chen revealed a faint smile as he looked at the glowing dark red demon core. He took a deep breath, and his gaze slowly turned resolute. Shao Chen knew what he was going to do next. He was going to snatch away the thing that the 10-odd half-step martial monarchs cared about the most. Any half-step martial monarch could easily kill Shao Chen. Even if they were significantly injured and exhausted most of their essence, they could still kill him easily. It was just like how Shao Chen could easily crush an inferior-grade martial king even if he was severely injured. This was a qualitative difference. At this moment, Shao Chen's position had simply swapped. He had become the target that could be crushed easily. However, this was a rare opportunity. The 10-odd half-step martial monarchs were all exhausted and covered in wounds of various sizes. They had prepared for so long and encountered such a good opportunity. If they did not take the risk, they would regret it in the future. Being a yes-man had never been Shao Chen's character. When it was time to attack, he would attack without hesitation. As long as there was a 50% chance of success, that would be enough. The figures of the 6 half-step martial monarchs that were not exhausted flashed and disappeared from Shao Chen's vision. The time has come. Attack! Shao Chen shouted in his heart. He continuously increased his weight and scattered the essence holding him in the air. Shao Chen was like a mountain falling to the ground under the pull of gravity. Chi! Chi! Shao Chen's speed instantly increased to the limit, surpassing Mach 4, which was the maximum speed a martial king could achieve. When the 10-odd martial monarchs guarding the sides saw Shao Chen falling like a meteor, their expressions changed greatly. Just as they were about to make a move, Old Qin, who had already traveled most of the distance in the red light, relaxed. He smiled sinisterly and said, "There is no need to bother with him. Let him come down. One wave of this baleful aura will kill him. How reckless! He can help me share some of the pressure." When the martial monarchs heard this, they thought it made sense. Even with Old Qin's cultivation, it would not be easy for him to endure. Given how fast this brat was falling, the impact of the baleful aura would be even stronger. Coincidentally, he could absorb most of the baleful aura, allowing Old Qin to complete the most difficult distance. The meteor-like Shao Chen crashed into the red light. The ferocious baleful aura immediately turned into countless malicious spirits. They charged at Shao Chen like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The mental energy in Shao Chen's sea of consciousness flowed continuously. Suddenly, his eyes turned golden. There was a deity in each of his golden pupils, standing quietly in the depths of his eyes. Pu Xi. Shao Chen's eyes widened. The two deities made their moves at the same time. A flood surged into the sky. The malicious spirits that were like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood were instantly purified, vanishing without a trace. Bang! Under the effect of gravity, Shao Chen landed heavily on the ground, causing it to tremble. Old Qin immediately felt the pressure on him lessen. He looked at Shao Chen, who had fallen beside the demon core. He revealed a mocking smile. "You overestimate yourself. The impact of mental energy is even more terrifying than an essence attack. You are just an inferior-grade martial king, yet you dare to join in the fun." Scram! Old Qin shouted angrily. He prepared to kick Shao Chen away. However, when Old Qin extended his leg, Shao Chen, who was on the ground, started rolling. When Shao Chen stood up again, the scarlet demon core on the ground had already disappeared. What's going on with this brat? Under the terrifying attack of that baleful aura, he can't even move. Even if his soul was not destroyed on the spot, he should be in a coma for at least a year. The expressions of the 10-odd half-step martial monarchs at the side froze. Their brains seemed to have short-circuited. Even Old Qin had to endure the baleful aura bitterly. How could this white-robed brat not do anything? Shao Chen smiled faintly. Taking advantage of the moment these people were stunned, his figure flashed. Shao Chen swept his universe ring and placed the corpses of the 3 half-step martial monarchs into it. Then, he activated the blood flame shoes. He moved at Mach 3.5, heading for the group of people fighting for the secret treasure. Shao Chen descended from the sky and picked up the demon core. Then, he picked up the corpses of the 3 half-step martial monarchs. This series of actions happened in the time it took for a spark to fly. Xiao Chun did not hesitate at all. It was like he had done this many times in his mind. He was very familiar with the process. Stop staring blankly. Quickly chase after him. This brat snatched away the demon core. Old Qin roared. Chapter 4:17. The 10 people were stunned for a moment before they reacted. They were shocked and furious. They quickly turned around and chased after Xiao Chun. All sorts of strong attacks flew behind Xiao Chun. After activating the blood flame shoes, Xiao Chun's speed reached Mach 3.5. While he was stunned, he had already moved more than a kilometer, easily dodging these attacks. That brat is back. He has a medial-grade secret treasure. Capture him and don't let him escape. When the originally chaotic crowd suddenly saw Xiao Chun rushing over, they immediately stopped fighting and surrounded Xiao Chun. Of course, inferior-grade secret treasures were not as attractive as medial-grade secret treasures. When Xiao Chun saw these people's actions, he smiled gently and ignored them. He executed the roaming dragon's 9 transformations and soared into the air. Boom! 10 odd sharp attacks flew at Xiao Chun's previous position. A huge pit appeared in the ground, and a horrifying shock wave surged out. The cultivators who had rushed over excitedly bore the brunt of the shock wave and were immediately blasted away. The cultivators behind quickly stopped and looked up. They saw 10 half-step martial monarchs. Their faces were filled with rage, and their auras swept through the dust on the ground. They kicked up a strong whirlwind as they rushed over. Seeing that the 10 people were about to attack again, the crowd was startled. They quickly scattered in different directions. Bang! 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 Attacks flew at Xiao Chun, who was moving up and down in the air. Several dozen clones immediately shattered into pieces. However, Xiao Chun's true body dodged the attacks, not suffering any damage. The attacks containing all sorts of peak states blasted hundreds of pits of various sizes in the ground. Even the smallest pit was at least 100 meters wide. Clearly, these half-step martial monarchs were extremely enraged. They did not hold back at all. What kind of grudge do they have? They even managed to peel off a layer of the ground. What exactly did this brat do? 10 half-step martial monarchs are attacking without any regard for their lives. Even if they have a medial-grade secret treasure, there is no need for such a large formation. This white-robed brat is extraordinarily courageous. First, he snatched 3 medial-grade secret treasures right before everyone's eyes. Now, he offended 10 half-step martial monarchs for some reason. The crowd moved aside and looked at the countless deep pits in the ground, the lingering energy, and the 10 enraged half-step martial monarchs. They all felt confused. As Xiao Chun flew past a crack in a boulder, he waved his hand, and the 3 wooden carvings and the medial-grade secret treasure flew into Xiao Chun's hand. Why is one intermediate artifact missing? Xiao Chun looked at the 2 artifacts in his hand with a puzzled expression. When Xiao Chun looked back, he saw Bai Lishi's tall figure in the crowd. He held a secret treasure in his hand as he smiled and waved at him. If there was anyone present who could see through Xiao Chun's plan, it would be Bai Lishi, who had been keeping an eye on Xiao Chun. Never mind. It is already pretty good that he left 2 behind for me. I should leave first. Xiao Chun placed the secret treasures in his universe ring and dodged the relentless attacks behind him. Then, he continued to rush forward. Young man, as long as you hand over the demon core, I will let you go immediately. You can take the 3 medial-grade secret treasures and the corpses of our companions. My holy fire manor will not seek trouble for you. Otherwise, no matter who you are or what power you have behind you, you will not be able to escape the holy fire manor's pursuit in the ancient desolate land. Old Man Qin's voice was filled with vigor. It reverberated within 10 miles, and everyone could hear it clearly. Damn! This brat is too greedy. Medial-grade secret treasures, the corpses of half-step martial monarchs, and the demon core of a peak high-rank blood demon. Unexpectedly, he took them all. When the many cultivators heard the old man's words, they immediately burst into an uproar. This fellow was too greedy. They were still fighting to the death for a few inferior-grade secret treasures. However, he took all the most valuable treasures in one go. What is a gap? This is a gap. If this brat can escape alive, he will be someone to be reckoned with in the future, a peak superior-grade Martial King said with a sigh. However, even if he escapes, he will not have a good ending. The Holy Fire Manor is too powerful in the southern islands of the ancient desolate land. It is not a good thing to offend the Holy Fire Manor. Someone at the side smiled and said, "You all are oversimplifying things. I remember who this brat is. He is the white-robed bladesman, who recently became very famous in the Great Qin nation. When he first appeared, he offended most of the noble clans in the Great Qin nation. I believe that with his temper, the Holy Fire Manor will not be able to suppress him. Just wait and see. It will be fine if old Qin can catch up to him. However, if he cannot, he will end up with the demon core of this peak high-rank blood demon and the treasures in his companion's ring. The 3 medial-grade secret treasures will all be for naught." Xiao Chun could not be bothered with old Qin's words. He continued to run forward. The other party was on his tail. Even with the help of the blood-flame shoes, he could not shake off these half-step martial monarchs. Xiao Chun still had to dodge the overwhelming attacks. His speed was already affected. If he got distracted by the other party's words, they would catch up to him. As for what the other party said about letting him go if he lost the demon core, Xiao Chun did not believe it. "Old Qin, this fellow's speed has reached Mach 3.5. It will not be easy to catch up to him," an old man said, panting slightly. Old Qin moved like lightning as he flew quickly. He said indifferently, "In that case you can stay. However, you can forget about the demon core." The moment old Qin said that, the old man fell silent. Even if he exhausted his essence, he would not be able to stop. Xiao Chun pushed off the ground and executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art to its limit. He was like a blue dragon flying around. Boom! 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 The 10 half-step martial monarchs in pursuit in the air sent all sorts of attacks at him. Xiao Chun weaved through the torrential rain and wind. The horrifying energy made one's heart palpitate. If one got hit, Xiao Chun would be finished. The attacks are too concentrated. At this rate, I will get hit sooner or later. Furthermore, my speed will be affected. I have to split them up. Xiao Chun did a somersault on the ground. As he got up, he thought to himself. With a flip of his hand, 3 more wooden sculptures appeared in his hand. Life bestowal spell. 3 white figures appeared around Xiao Chun. The moment they appeared, they immediately ran in 3 different directions. It was hard to tell which was the real one. If one asked Xiao Chun who he was most familiar with in this world, it would definitely be him. Hence, the wooden sculptures were the most charming. They could almost pass off as the real one. "Old Qin, what should we do? Where do we go?" When the 3 figures appeared, the 10-odd people in pursuit immediately stopped. They were at a loss. When they used their mental energy, they found that the 4 figures were all real. They could not tell which were which. Old Qin's expression turned sullen. After muttering to himself for a while, he quickly made a decision. "This brat has many tricks up his sleeves. Let's not bother about him. We will split up and chase after him. We cannot let any one of them off. We cannot let this brat escape." The 10-odd people immediately split into 4 groups, each heading in a different direction. Old Qin and an old man quickly followed behind Xiao Chun's real body. Old Qin was 60% confident that this was the real body. However, he did not dare to be too sure. This was not the time to think too much. If he thought too much, Xiao Chun would run further. Hence, he could only split up and chase after Xiao Chun. With only 2 people left, the densely packed attacks immediately decreased by half. Xiao Chun felt much more relaxed. With a flip of his hand, another wooden sculpture appeared. It was Ying Yu's sculpture. These 4 statues could have been used for a long time. Xiao Chen could only use them now. With a flip of his palm, Yu immediately brandished her spear and blocked the 2 people behind her with a flourishing aura. Old Qin's expression changed slightly. He said in astonishment, "This is the great Qin nation's first princess. How can it be? No, it is a clone. Block her. I will continue chasing." An old man at the side nodded and said, "Old Qin, be careful. This brat is full of tricks. You have exhausted yourself. Be careful." Old Qin snorted coldly, "Don't worry. He is just an inferior grade martial king. No matter how many tricks he has, I can crush him with one hand." Finally, only one person remained of the group chasing after him. Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. A beam of light descended from the sky and appeared in Xiao Chen's vision. Xiao Chen smiled gently. He had finally arrived at the exit of the demon battlefield. Trying to leave? How can it be that easy? Giant sand palm. Old Qin shouted and smashed his palm towards the ground. A huge, formless palm appeared out of nowhere and instantly imprinted itself on the ground. Hu-chi! Hu-chi! The hard ground trembled continuously. It was like the waves on the surface of the sea, rising and falling. In an instant, the entire ground turned into a sea of sand. Boom! A huge palm made of sand quickly formed. It was more than 200 meters tall. When it spread its fingers, it covered the sky and the sun. In an instant, it completely encased Xiao Chen. A large shadow appeared, and Xiao Chen's vision immediately turned dark. He felt a sense of danger. When he checked his surroundings with his spiritual sense, he was startled. The timing of this giant sand palm was very precise. It took into account Xiao Chen's speed. The instant it appeared, it enveloped him. As long as the 5 fingers closed in, Xiao Chen would be severely injured, even if he did not die, under the horrifying pressure. "I have to charge out quickly." Xiao Chen did not even think. He immediately infused some essence into the blood flame shoes. His body flew uncontrollably towards the only bright spot in front of him. Bang! The palm made of sand closed in, and there was a loud explosion. The power of the peak state of Earth surged forward. Xiao Chen, who had just escaped, was caught off guard and was struck by this force. Xiao Chen vomited a mouthful of blood and tumbled a few times in the air before crashing to the ground. Old Qin's complexion was frighteningly pale. There was no trace of blood at all. Clearly, that move earlier had exhausted a lot of his essence. When Old Qin saw Xiao Chen vomit a mouthful of blood and continue rushing forward, he said angrily, "Damn it! You let him escape like this. Sand cage!" Old Qin shouted and landed on the ground. He pressed his right hand tightly to the ground. The entire ground immediately rippled like waves, moving continuously. Xiao Chen felt the ground under his feet loosen, and he immediately sank into it. Chapter 4:18. The countless grains of sand in the surroundings moved continuously, quickly forming a huge cage, trapping Xiao Chen within as it shrank continuously. Wukui breaks the heavens. After struggling out of the sand-filled ground, Xiao Chen did not hesitate to execute one of his strongest killing moves. At this moment, he could not afford to hesitate. He only had one chance. If he could not break out of this cage, he would be completely sealed. So, he immediately executed Wukui breaks the heavens. A pillar of light quickly elongated on the snow-white saber. Soon, it was a kilometer long. It merged 2 strong states and tore a large hole in the sand wall above him. Xiao Chen's figure flashed as he rushed out. "Brat, you won't be able to escape this time, right?" The moment Xiao Chen came out, he saw Old Qin flying at him with a sinister expression. He was less than 100 meters away. Old Qin spread his fingers and grabbed at Xiao Chen. Chi! Chi! Old Qin's sharp fingers contained a strong force. Everywhere they passed, 5 faint marks appeared in the air. One could easily imagine how strong this force was. The old man's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, He closed the distance of 100 meters. He pulled his fingers downwards, looking like he was about to pierce through Xiao Chen's shoulder. At the crucial moment, Xiao Chen turned around and pressed 2 fingers on his right hand against the other party's shoulder. A huge force came from Xiao Chen's shoulder, causing him some pain. Old Qin circulated his essence and dissipated the force. He smiled faintly and said, "With your strength, even if I stood here and let you hit me, you would not be able to break through my defense. Furthermore, you want to snatch my things? Die." Bang! Just as he finished speaking and his right claw was about to land on Old Qin, a bloody hole suddenly appeared on his shoulder. Old Qin's body fell to the ground. Xiao Chen waved his hand and the 3-inch-long palm sword flew back to him. Xiao Chen did not care how strong this sword strike was or how much damage it dealt to Old Qin. His figure flashed as he flew towards the pillar of light. Old Qin clutched the bloody hole in his shoulder, his pale face showing a pained expression. He had never imagined that Xiao Chen would actually have a peak low-rank secret treasure in his palm. With a flip of his palm, Old Qin took out a pill. A pained expression appeared on his face as he hesitated for a moment before swallowing the pill. The medicinal pill melted in Xiao Chen's mouth, and the bloody hole in his right shoulder healed at a visible rate. Soon, it returned to normal. This was a Tier 8 healing panacea. It had the effect of reviving the dead at a crucial moment. Old Qin was only using it to heal his wounds. He had no choice but to use it. It was obviously overkill. For the sake of recovering the monster core, he had lost yet another healing panacea. The hatred in Old Qin's eyes grew even more intense. Seeing Xiao Chen pass through the pillar of light, he hurriedly chased after him. After Old Qin passed through the pillar of light, his vision blurred for a moment. Then, he exited the demon battlefield and returned to Boulder Island. He quickly looked around for Xiao Chen. Strange, where did this brat run off to? Why can't I see him anywhere? It is impossible for him to be so fast at Mach 3. 5. Old Qin looked around at the empty surroundings, his eyes filled with doubt. Just as Old Qin was feeling suspicious, a strong aura of massacre appeared above him. Along with the state of massacre was a tyrannical dragon might. Old Qin's expression changed greatly as he looked up. He saw Xiao Chen descending from the sky. An azure dragon image coiled around his right hand. Xiao Chen clenched his fist and punched at Old Qin. Boom! There was a dragon roar, and ripples appeared in the sky. Old Qin instantly felt a supreme dragon might descend from the sky, like a mountain pressing down on him. Old Qin could not move an inch. He could not help but be horrified. He quickly took out a small, exquisite shield and blew on it. The shield rapidly expanded, emitting a light blue luster as it blocked in front of him. The blue light was clear and transparent, and the spiritual energy it contained was overwhelming. This shield was actually an inferior-grade medial-grade defensive secret treasure. However, the surface of the shield was slightly dim. It was clear that Old Qin had exhausted too much essence and was unable to bring out the full potential of this secret treasure. Bang! The dragon head crashed into the shield, and the blue ripples immediately scattered. Blood leaked out of the corner of Old Qin's mouth. He held the shield and instantly retreated a kilometer. Blue dragon tail whip! Xiao Chen shouted, and the azure dragon image immediately gathered the last of its energy on its tail. It moved in an arc, bypassing the shield and striking Old Qin's body. Pu-ci! Old Qin vomited a large mouthful of blood, and his body was sent flying. When Xiao Chen saw Old Qin drifting through the air like a withered leaf, many thoughts flashed in his mind. In the end, he resisted the urge to charge forward and kill Old Qin. Old Qin's companions had not arrived yet. If Xiao Chen charged forward and got delayed, it would be all over. Xiao Chen's figure flashed and he quickly left. He felt it was a pity. This time, he had used all his trump cards, but he still could not kill Old Qin. In the future, there would probably be no more opportunities for old Qin to exhaust his essence or exhaust his mental energy. Not long after Shao Chen left, the pillar of light flashed a few more times. The half-step martial monarchs chasing Shao Chen's clone finally arrived. When they saw old Qin lying on the ground with his shield tossed aside and a pale complexion with blood flowing out of his mouth, they were astonished. They quickly gave chase. "Old Qin, are you all right?" Old Qin stood up weakly and looked in the direction that Shao Chen had taken. His eyes looked like they were going to spew fire. He said coldly, "I won't die. That brat cannot have left the southern islands so quickly. Quickly bring me back to the Holy Fire Manor. If I do not find that brat, I will not be able to quell the hatred in my heart." The group exchanged glances and looked at the severely injured old Qin. They could not understand how Shao Chen, an inferior-grade martial king, could injure old Qin. Even though old Qin had exhausted a lot of his essence, he still had his foundations. It would be easy for him to crush an inferior-grade martial king to death. On the lake northeast of Boulder Island, a small silver boat was moving quickly. Shao Chen sat cross-legged in the boat's hold. He held a medial-grade spirit stone in each hand as he slowly recovered his essence. Shao Chen used the blood flame shoes, a medial-grade secret treasure, for a long time. Furthermore, he used the life bestowal spell and the roaming dragon's 9 transformations at the same time, which significantly increased the drain on his essence. In merely 4 hours, Shao Chen had exhausted most of his essence. Fortunately, he managed to escape the pursuit of old Qin and the others before he ran out of essence. This was not much different from what Shao Chen had planned. After the Purple Thunder Divine incantation reached the 6th layer, the speed at which Shao Chen absorbed spiritual energy had tripled. The medial-grade spirit stones that could have allowed him to cultivate for half a day had been used up in half an hour. Shao Chen opened his eyes and felt that the purple qi whirlpool was only filled with essence liquid. He frowned slightly. 2 medial-grade spirit stones were only enough for him to cultivate for an hour. Furthermore, it was only half as effective. The exhaustion of a heaven-ranked cultivation technique was much greater than Shao Chen had expected. Calculating it, he had exhausted at least 10 medial-grade spirit stones a day. If the Purple Thunder Divine incantation advanced in the future, the exhaustion would increase exponentially. Right now, Shao Chen had more than 50,000 medial-grade spirit stones. He did not have to worry about this. However, it would be hard to say in the future. No wonder those peak geniuses all wanted to find a strong power to back them up. The competition between geniuses was not just a competition of their own talent. There were also all sorts of natural treasures and superior-grade resources. These were all important aspects of the competition. The principle was very simple. With the same talent and aptitude, one person could use an unlimited amount of resources while the other could only use half of the other person's resources. Over time, this difference would be extraordinarily large. It might even form an insurmountable chasm. Furthermore, this was only for cultivation below martial monarch. If one wanted to maintain such a fast cultivation speed after advancing to martial monarch, they would have to use superior-grade spirit stones every day. If that was the case, the exhaustion would be even more horrifying. Given the situation of the Great Qin nation, even the royal court would find it hard to sustain such a huge expenditure. In that case, who could afford to raise a peak genius who had advanced to martial monarch? Perhaps only the Great Qin nation had such a strong sect that could afford to raise such a genius. Shao Chen collected his thoughts and took out the Haotian medallion from the universe ring. He grasped the Haotian medallion tightly with his right hand and a pensive look appeared in his eyes. The Supreme Sky Sect was one of the 10 peak sects of the Great Qin nation. Shao Chen did not know if they could afford to raise his cultivation to martial monarch. However, once he accepted someone else's resources, he would be bound to the other party's war chariot. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Never mind, thinking about this is giving me a headache. The resources I have now are sufficient for me. I will worry about this later. Let's take a look at my harvest first. Xiao Chun put away the Haotian medallion and took out the corpses of the 3 half-step martial monarchs from the universe ring. The wounds on these 3 corpses were very horrifying. A black aura lingered on the wounds. The surrounding flesh was corroded into a horrible sight, and a strange smell wafted out. Xiao Chun gently touched the wounds and a drop of the black aura came into contact with his fingertip. ZZ. The black aura continuously corroded the skin and flesh of his fingertip, trying to enter his flesh. This caused Xiao Chun to feel some pain. His mood seemed to turn agitated. A strand of purple flame appeared on his fingertip and burned the black aura into nothing. Illusory miserable cries resounded in Xiao Chen's mind. The black aura seemed to be alive. What a horrifying baleful aura! If such an attack pierced through my flesh and I did not get rid of it in time, it would be fatal. When the baleful aura invaded my meridians, even the smallest wound would be fatal. This should not be an ordinary state of massacre. It was infused with the negative states unique to demons, such as despair, pain, rage, etc. Otherwise, it would not have such an effect. In the future, if I run into similar wounds, I cannot be careless. Otherwise, it might lead to a great disaster. These 3 people might have died like this. Xiao Chun removed the spatial rings from the corpses and tossed the corpses into the lake. Then, he started to check the treasures in the spatial rings. Xiao Chun opened the first spatial ring with his spiritual sense. Instantly, he saw a large pile of medial-grade spirit stones. With a rough count, there were at least 20,000 medial-grade spirit stones. As for the inferior-grade spirit stones, there were a horrifying number of 100,000. What a fellow! Xiao Chun had killed so many peak martial kings and obtained only 50,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Unexpectedly, this half-step martial monarch had accumulated 20,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Chapter 419. However, when Xiao Chun thought about it, most of these old men had lived for more than 100 years. They had probably been half-step martial monarchs for several decades. It was not strange for them to have such an accumulation. Xiao Chun continued looking. There were some high-ranked blood demons' demon cores in the ring. These should be the demon cores they killed in the demon battlefield. Aside from these, there were also a few inferior-grade secret treasures. However, they were just ordinary secret treasures. They did not attract Xiao Chen's attention. Just as Xiao Chen was about to withdraw his spiritual sense, he noticed an unremarkable black box in the corner. The box was about the size of a palm. If not for Xiao Chen's sharp eyes, he would not have noticed it. This box was placed in an inconspicuous corner. What could it be? Xiao Chen thought for a while before taking the box out. The box was not locked. Xiao Chen opened it easily. 10 exquisite white pearls lay in the small space. The pearls were as smooth as crystal. However, they did not give off any spiritual energy. Compared to spirit stones, they were very plain. When Xiao Chen picked them up and sent his spiritual sense into them, he could feel the pure spiritual energy in them. They were even purer than the spiritual energy in medial-grade spirit stones. According to Xiao Chen's estimation, this small white pearl was equivalent to 100 or more medial-grade spirit stones. Xiao Chen was startled. He found this pearl familiar. Suddenly, he recalled that there were 2 similar pearls among the burial items of the Savannah King. He quickly took them out and compared them. The 2 pearls were the same size and looked very ordinary. They did not leak any spiritual energy. Only when Xiao Chen sent his spiritual sense into them could he sense the horrifying energy contained in them. The difference was that the 2 pearls of the Savannah King were blue. Their color was clearly deeper. Furthermore, the energy they contained was on a completely different level from the white pearls. Xiao Chen felt that he was confident of absorbing the spiritual energy in the white pearls. However, he did not dare to think the same for the blue pearls. With his current cultivation, He would explode and die on the spot if he absorbed it. Xiao Chen muttered, "These two pearls should be the same item. However, they are of different grades. However, I have never heard of such an item before. I have to look into it in the future. Aside from spirit stones, there are other things that can store spiritual energy." Xiao Chen placed the spirit stones and the mysterious pearl into his own universe ring. Then, he tossed the other items into the corner of the universe ring, including the spatial ring. In the remaining 2 universe rings, Xiao Chen obtained another 40,000 medial-grade spirit stones. However, he did not find any more of the mysterious pearls. However, he found 100 superior-grade spirit stones in the 3rd universe ring. This was a pleasant surprise. With this, Xiao Chen's total number of medial-grade spirit stones reached a horrifying 110,000. As for inferior-grade spirit stones, he had more than 1,000,000. In this trip, Xiao Chen had a great harvest. Chen's spirit chens. Spirit demons, spirit demon chens. On this trip to the demon battlefield, Xiao Chen had reaped a great harvest. The only thing he had lost was half of the Wudong spiritual tree and the dragon chi in his arm. He needed some time to accumulate before he could use it again. After doing all this, Xiao Chen sorted out all the items in the universe ring. He discovered that some of the small items and miscellaneous items had already accumulated to a certain level. These items were obtained from the cultivators he killed. If they were individually, they would not be worth much. However, when accumulated, they would be a great harvest. If there were too many of them, it would be troublesome to store them in the universe ring. Xiao Chen took out a map of the ancient desolate land and muttered to himself, "I have to find a place to exchange for all these items. At the same time, I can ask around about the various factions in the ancient desolate land and how strong the holy fire manor is." The ancient desolate land was very large. It far exceeded Xiao Chen's expectations. Not counting the few cities at the periphery, just the heavenly extermination lake alone was already larger than the great Qin nation. Rather than calling the heavenly extermination lake a lake, it would be more accurate to call it an ocean, an inland sea. This was because it was simply too vast. According to the map that Xiao Chen bought in Boulder City, the entire heavenly extermination lake was divided into the southern islands, western islands, northern islands, and eastern islands. There was also the central islands with the desolate city at the center of the heavenly extermination lake. Aside from these, there were many unknown areas on the heavenly extermination lake. To cultivators, it was a forbidden land. It was hard to imagine that during the Tianwu dynasty, the core of the entire continent had become like this. Boulder Island was an unremarkable island in the southern archipelago. If not for the existence of the demon battlefield, very few people would have landed there. There were thousands of islands in the southern island. Some islands were desolate and uninhabited, filled with ferocious demonic beasts and demonic plants. Cultivators used them as experiential training grounds. There were also some islands filled with flowers and plants, filled with overwhelming spiritual energy. The entire island was filled with spiritual energy, filled with spirit herbs and boundless herb gardens. However, most of the islands were no different from human cities. Thousands of ordinary people lived there. There were cities, lords, and sections. The island that Xiao Chen wanted to go to was called Red Cloud Island. It was the island closest to him that had humans living on it. It was considered a middle-sized island in the southern islands. Even though it was very close, it was only the distance shown on the map. It was only 1 finger's distance on the map. However, in reality, it was 2,000 kilometers. However, there was one good thing about the lake. One could travel in a straight line, unlike the 2 cities that were clearly very close. Sometimes one would have to take a long detour due to various obstacles, such as mountains, lakes, or grasslands. Xiao Chen estimated that if he took it easy, he would be able to arrive in 3 days. Xiao Chen had already left the boundaries of Boulder Island. On this vast lake, Xiao Chen's lone boat was like a drop of water in the sea. It would not attract any attention. Xiao Chen did not believe that the holy Fire Manners people would be able to find him. Hence, he intended to travel in a relaxed manner. At the same time, he would use these 7 days to temper his physical body. There was a threshold for cultivating the firmament body tempering art. One's vital qi had to reach 150 tons of force before one could practice it. When Xiao Chen practiced the dragon and tiger body tempering art to its peak, he could only exert 150 tons of force. In the end, he was still lacking. If Xiao Chen wanted to improve further, he could only rely on external help. The so-called external help referred to the body-tempering spirit herbs that Xiao Chen had obtained on Qianren Island. Xiao Chen had once consumed a large number of body-tempering spirit herbs in the underground world of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Hence, regular body-tempering spirit herbs were not very effective on him. On Qianren Island, the body-tempering spirit herbs that Xiao Chen found were all at least 500 years old. Unfortunately, there were only 6 of them. Xiao Chen placed the 6 spirit herbs that increased vital qi on the bow of the boat. He muttered, "There are only 6. However, 3 of them are at least 1,000 years old. If I consume all of them, I should have no problem increasing my strength by 25 tons of force. 150 tons of force would be sufficient." At that time, when Xiao Chen cultivated the inferior-grade heaven-ranked body-tempering secret art, his physical body would explode forth. The silver boat moved at an unhurried speed on the calm lake, gliding calmly in the direction that Xiao Chen had determined. After Xiao Chen consumed a spirit herb, he sat down cross-legged and focused on refining the medicinal energy. He absorbed every drop of medicinal energy into his bones. 4 days passed in a flash. Every time Xiao Chen refined a spirit herb, he could feel his bones, meridians, and even his flesh becoming tougher. His vital qi also increased significantly. On this particular day, Xiao Chen suddenly opened his eyes and circulated all the vital qi in his body. Then, he punched the calm lake. Bang! The fist wind formed by Xiao Chen's vital qi created a 20-meter-wide whirlpool on the lake. After a while, a pillar of water soared into the sky from the whirlpool. All sorts of fish and shrimps fell continuously from the water pillar. They fell for a few minutes before they all fell. It was easy to imagine that the force of this punch had to be at least 300 meters deep before it could cause so many fish and shrimps to fall. Xiao Chen withdrew his punch and revealed a satisfied smile. He had finally achieved 150 tons of force in 5 days. There was still a 1,000-year-old spirit herb that he had yet to refine. However, Xiao Chen did not continue refining it. At his current cultivation, a 1,000-year-old spirit herb would not have much of an effect. Since he had already reached the threshold of the firmament body tempering art, there was no need to waste it. 5 days. I should be at Red Cloud Island by now. Xiao Chen muttered as he looked at the lake in front of him. There was a white mist on the distant lake. Behind the mist was the indistinct silhouette of an island. That should be Red Cloud Island. It is time to rush at full speed, Xiao Chen thought to himself. With a thought, the small silver boat immediately turned into a beam of purple light and entered Xiao Chen's right eye. Xiao Chen pushed off the water and executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art. Xiao Chen was like a blue dragon flying quickly on the water surface. Boom! 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 Not long after Xiao Chen flew, he felt intense energy fluctuations coming from in front. There were loud shouts and waves surging. Clearly, there was a battle going on in front. Based on the energy fluctuations, the cultivators fighting should not be of low levels. Xiao Chen hesitated for a while before flying in the direction of the sounds. After 10 breaths, Xiao Chen finally saw who was fighting. A kilometer away, a black-robed cultivator and a girl in a blue dress were fighting on the water surface. The black-robed old man was a medial-grade martial king. He held a pitch-black sword in his hand. A black aura surrounded the sword. The aura of the black-robed old man was very strange. His moves were very ruthless, targeting the vital points of the white-robed girl. The white-robed girl's cultivation was higher than the black-robed cultivator's. However, because of the strange black aura, she had to be careful. This made the situation look very unsightly. However, in Xiao Chen's opinion, the white-robed girl had the upper hand. The black-robed cultivator tried to escape several times, but the white-robed girl blocked his path. Clearly, the white-robed girl wanted to play it safe. She wanted to use the advantage of her cultivation to drag things out slowly. Then, she would deal a fatal blow to the black-robed man. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. He was somewhat astonished. The aura of the sword was similar to that of the scarred man on Qianren Island. It was clearly the demonic qi of the demonic world. Chapter 420. Unexpectedly, this black-robed cultivator was a remnant of the Dark Church with a demonic beast martial spirit. According to the rules of the continent, when one saw a remnant of the Dark Church, they had to work together to kill him. After all, the other party was once the public enemy of the continent. Xiao Chen thought for a while and stomped on the ground. An intense fist wind flew at the black-robed cultivator. When the black-robed cultivator saw Xiao Chen suddenly appear, he was somewhat surprised. However, when he discovered that Xiao Chen was only an inferior-grade martial king, the shock on his face turned into a smile. "You overestimate yourself. I can use this brat as a hostage and leave this place quickly. This girl is too strong. Dragging this out is not a solution." The black-robed cultivator knocked away the white-clothed girl's attack with his sword. He clenched his left fist, and strands of black qi surrounded it. He revealed a sinister smile as he clashed with Xiao Chen's fist. "Be careful, there is demonic qi on his fist. You cannot clash head-on with him." When the white-clothed girl saw Xiao Chen suddenly appear, she could not help but feel anxious. Why did a fellow who does not care about his life appear out of nowhere? Xiao Chen's expression remained calm. He did not care too much about it. He only merged his essence and vital qi. Under the situation where a full-powered strike could carry 150 tons of force, the essence he infused could reach 250 tons of force. This could be considered the peak punch of Xiao Chen in his perfect state. Bang! There was a loud cautious sound, and a huge force spread out. The black-robed cultivator's entire arm was crippled. His bones broke. When the two fists met, there was a loud sound and an intense shockwave. A 10-meter-tall wave soared into the surroundings. Before the white-clothed girl's astonished gaze, the black qi surrounding Xiao Chen's fist wind blew away without a trace. Pu ci. The black-robed cultivator vomited a large mouthful of blood. His pale face was filled with shock. Xiao Chen's strength had reached an incredible level. It was at least 250 tons of force. Aside from peak superior-grade martial kings who cultivated superior-grade earth-ranked cultivation techniques, it would be difficult for anyone to achieve such strength. "I have to run quickly. That girl is already difficult to deal with. Now there is this strange brat. If I do not leave now, I will not be able to." The black-robed cultivator turned around and dove into the vast lake, trying to escape underwater. "You want to leave? Not so easy." Xiao Chen stepped forward and shouted. Then, he punched the surface of the water and a huge whirlpool appeared in front of him. A pillar of water shot up into the sky. Amidst the countless fishes and prawns, the black-robed man's body was directly lifted into the air by the water column. At this time, the white-clothed woman also came back to her senses. She flew forward and brandished her sword. The white-clothed woman was like a butterfly fluttering up and down. In the sword light, it was extremely sharp. In the air, it was as if it was real. Xiao Chen had never seen such a condensed sword light before. In an instant, Xiao Chen sent out more than 100 sword lights, creating more than 100 bloody holes of various sizes on the black-robed cultivator's body. Bang! When the water pillar fell, the black-robed cultivator's body landed on the surface of the lake as well. However, he was already dead. He could not be any more dead. This woman looked delicate and elegant. However, when she attacked, she was extraordinarily decisive and sharp. Cassier. The white-clothed woman chopped off the black-robed cultivator's head. Then, she tossed the head into her universe ring. Then, she removed the other party's spatial ring. Her movements were very smooth and practiced. Thank you for your help. What is your name? After the white-clothed woman finished all this, she raised her head and looked at Xiao Chen. Then, she smiled gently. Originally, Xiao Chen thought that the other party's help would drag her down. Unexpectedly, it saved her a lot of time. The white-clothed woman felt somewhat curious about this unfamiliar and strong youth. Xiao Chen said calmly, "It's fine. He is a remnant of the Dark Church. It is only natural for me to kill him." When the white-clothed woman heard this, she was slightly stunned. She carefully sized up Xiao Chen and smiled gently. "You have just arrived in the ancient desolate land, right?" Xiao Chen felt somewhat suspicious. He said, "Yes, I have indeed just arrived in the ancient desolate land. However, how did you know?" The white-clothed woman smiled and said, "After staying in the ancient desolate land for a long time, you would not say that." "What do you mean?" The white-clothed woman organized her words and explained everything to Xiao Chen in detail. It turned out that there were many remnant members of the Dark Church in the ancient desolate land. Furthermore, they had formed a moderately large faction. However, no one bothered about them. There was no other reason than this was the ancient desolate land, where the various factions gathered. There were many wanted criminals of the various nations, bandits and tyrants who killed without batting an eyelid. As long as they came here, the wanted posters of the outside world would lose their effect. Since the destruction of the Tianwu dynasty, the ancient desolate land had always been a lawless place. It had always been extremely chaotic. Furthermore, due to some strange reason, there had never been any news of the 5 great nations or the strong sects planning to monopolize the ancient desolate land. At some point in time, the ancient desolate land became an absolutely neutral place in the continent. Even the evil tyrants and evil cultivators that everyone in the outside world would not be killed by righteous people in the name of chivalry. In the ancient desolate land, strength was everything. Righteousness and chivalry were just jokes to others. Even the survivors of the Nether sect, the common enemy of the human race, would not gang up on them here. They were no different from ordinary cultivators. They would only be hunted down if they violated the interests of others. After Xiao Chen heard this, he suddenly understood. This ancient desolate land was a miraculous place. However, he did not know why the various great nations and sects did not dare to encroach on the ancient desolate land. The ancient desolate land was a huge place. It could not be described as a piece of juicy meat. There should be an extremely strong faction in the ancient desolate land looking out for it in secret. Otherwise, it would not be able to prevent others from spying on it. After the white-clothed woman finished speaking, she continued, "Let me formally introduce myself. I am Xia Xian from the Great Xia Nation's Thousand-Sword Pavilion." Xiao Chen had heard of the Thousand-Sword Pavilion before. It was a peak sect in the Great Xia Nation. Its strength was similar to the Great Chu Nation's Heavenly Sword Gate. It was somewhat famous in the 4 great nations. Xiao Chen nodded gently and said, "I am Xiao Chen from the Great Qin Nation. I do not belong to any sect at the moment." Xia Xian's pretty face revealed a stunned expression. Clearly, she did not believe that Xiao Chen did not belong to any sect. Xiao Chen's punch contained 250,000 kilograms of force. Even in the Great Jin Nation, where there were many geniuses, a large sect would value him. However, although Xia Xian was curious, she would not try to get to the bottom of things for no reason. Everyone had their own secrets to some extent. Looking at where you are going, you seem to be going to Heavenly Spring Island. Coincidentally, I have completed my mission as well. Let's go together. Xia Xian invited. Xiao Chen was stunned. He said, "Isn't that Red Cloud Island in front?" How did it become Heavenly Spring Island? Xia Xian said with certainty, Heavenly Spring Island is in front. It is one of the 6 great islands, second only to the main island in the south. You must be going in the wrong direction. Xiao Chun took out the map and looked at it. He could not help but smile bitterly. Red Cloud Island and Heavenly Spring Island. One was in the south and the other was in the north. The distance between them was close to 500 kilometers. Xiao Chun really did not know how he got here. How did you get here? Xia Xian asked softly. Xiao Chun thought for a while and answered honestly, I took a boat here. Since he took a boat, that should be a flying-type secret treasure. Xia Xian felt excited. She had not expected Xiao Chun to have such a treasure. However, this could explain the reason for this. Xia Xian said softly, No wonder. The heavenly extermination lake looks calm, without any waves. However, there are many undercurrents. Sometimes they even form a strong undercurrent. If one was not an experienced boatman, even if one had a map, they would definitely deviate from the right direction. The main island of the southern archipelago, Longyang Island, was similar to the capital of the Shihe province. It was the core island of the southern archipelago. The only difference was that it did not have any jurisdiction over the other island. Around Longyang Island, there were 6 islands that were second only to it in terms of size and position. This Heavenly Spring Island was one of them. Never mind. Since I am already at Heavenly Spring Island, I might as well take a look. Red Cloud Island is just a small island. Whatever it can do, Heavenly Spring Island should be able to do as well. The two of them executed their movement techniques and quickly headed for Heavenly Spring Island. Along the way, Xiao Chun understood why Xia Xian and the black-robed cultivator ended up fighting. The name of the remnant forces of the Dark Church in the ancient desolate land had changed slightly. They were still called the Dark Church. There were many experts in the Dark Church. However, compared to the Dark Church in the past, they were much weaker. Not long ago, the Dark Church had gotten into a conflict with another faction in the ancient desolate land, the Blood Wolf Gang. Both sides had issued missions in the Heavenly Extermination Union to kill the other's disciples and obtain rewards. Xia Xian had come to this Heavenly Spring Island to do something. Coincidentally, she accepted the mission from the Blood Wolf Gang. Xiao Chun asked, What rank is that black-robed cultivator in the current Dark Church? How many rewards can I obtain for killing him? Xia Xian's figure flashed on the surface of the water. She said softly, The Dark Church has 1 church master, 2 vice church masters, 9 elders, and 108 protectors. The rest are just a bunch of miscellaneous soldiers of varying strength. The one I just killed was one of the 108 protectors. However, the current protectors cannot be compared to the protectors of the past. The older protectors were at least half-step martial monarchs. Unfortunately, most of them are already dead. The one I just killed was just to make up the numbers. Given this, Xiao Chun had a rough idea of the current strength of the Dark Church. Even though it was much weaker than before, the 9 elders should all be martial monarchs. However, the 9 elders should all be martial monarchs. Furthermore, there were some protectors who had not died. Such a force was probably much stronger than the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Xiao Chun continued, Why did they fight? Do such large-scale battles happen frequently in the ancient desolate land? Chapter 421. Xia Xian smiled gently and said, Ha ha! You really have a lot of questions. When I first arrived, I was the same as you. It's all about fighting for territory, islands, spirit veins, or rare treasures. It is very normal. After a while, you will not feel anything. The two chatted for a while. Then, they rushed at full speed and soon arrived at Dragon Spring Island. The island was very large. It could no longer be called an island. There were at least 10 cities the size of Whitewater City. Under Xia Xian's suggestion, Xiao Chun went to the largest city on the island. It was also named after the island, Dragon Spring City. In that case, let's part ways here. Thank you again for helping me. If you have time, you are welcome to come to the Clear Spring Inn to look for me." After Xia Xian entered the city, she said goodbye to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen nodded gently and headed to the shops in the city. Along the way, Xia Xian told him about the strength of the Holy Fire Manor. The Holy Fire Manor was considered a strong faction in the southern islands. However, compared to the Dark Church and the Blood Wolf Gang, which covered the entire ancient desolate land, they were much weaker. The manor lord of the Holy Fire Manor was a martial monarch. There was also a consecrator who was also a martial monarch. There were also 10 odd elders who were half-step martial monarch. Old Qin was one of them. Given this, Xiao Chen felt more at ease. The chances of the other party sending an elder to capture him were not high. After all, Old Qin was only an elder. It would be difficult for him to order the other elders around. As long as half-step martial monarchs did not make a move, even if Xiao Chen faced a peak superior grade martial king, he would be able to leave easily. There were many people on the streets of the city. Most of them were ordinary people with low cultivations. However, there were many experts as well. There were many martial kings. Occasionally, 1 or 2 peak superior grade martial kings could be seen. What surprised Xiao Chen was that he saw many fiend race cultivators. These people looked very different from humans. For example, the barbarian ox race cultivators had small horns on their foreheads, the heavenly wolf race cultivators with silver eyes and pointy ears, and some fiend race cultivators who had not completely transformed. The fur on their bodies was very thick, and some even had long tails. However, when most people saw these fiend race cultivators, their expressions were very calm. They did not feel surprised at all. Even the ordinary people were not surprised. On the contrary, Xiao Chen looked around and seemed to be making a fuss about nothing. "Brat, what are you looking at? What's there to look at? Watch me tear you apart." A loud roar suddenly roared at Xiao Chen. The sound was like thunder, shaking everyone's eardrums. It was a burly tiger race cultivator more than 2 meters tall. He was bare-chested and had thick yellow fur all over his body. Seeing that Xiao Chen was looking at him curiously, he felt extremely displeased. He bared his teeth and shouted. He clenched his fists so hard that they crackled. Then, he charged at Xiao Chen with an aggressive aura. On the noisy street, this thunderous voice immediately attracted the attention of countless people. These people did not seem to find such a situation strange. When they saw that there was a commotion, they immediately went over. Xiao Chen could not help but feel somewhat embarrassed. He had not expected his curiosity to attract such trouble. Based on the aura of this tiger race cultivator, he was no weaker than a medial-grade martial king. "Sorry, I just arrived in this ancient desolate land and was somewhat curious. I apologize for my rudeness. Here are 200 medial-grade spirit stones. The less trouble, the better." Xiao Chen had offended the Holy Fire Manor. Furthermore, this person had a few companions behind him. It would not be good if this matter blew up. Furthermore, Xiao Chen was indeed in the wrong in this matter. He looked at someone like they were monsters for no reason. Anyone would feel displeased. It would be fine if he could settle this with some spirit stones. That tiger race cultivator caught the bag that Xiao Chen tossed over and counted the spirit stones. He said, 200 is too little. Take out 1,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Otherwise, you can forget about leaving here alive. So he is here to extort me. Xiao Chen's expression turned cold. He said in a cold voice, "Sorry, I have the spirit stones. However, I will not give them to you." The tiger race cultivator could not help but become enraged. He said, "You are really seeking death. Even if you hand over the spirit stones now, it is useless. Die." The tiger race cultivator shouted and stomped on the ground. Small cracks immediately appeared on the street. His figure wavered as he punched at Xiao Chen. Bang! 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 It seemed like a ferocious tiger appeared on Xiao Chen's fist. Its aura instantly surged. The fist wind exploded, creating intense sonic booms in the air. Ka. Just as Xiao Chen was about to make a move, a purple-clothed man jumped down from a restaurant at the side of the street. The purple-clothed man opened his palm and grabbed the other party's fist, easily neutralizing this punch with its overwhelming aura. No matter how hard the tiger race cultivator tried, he would not be able to move an inch. The purple-clothed man turned around and said to the tiger race cultivator, "Return the spirit stones to him, and you may leave." Jiang Zimo. When the tiger race cultivator saw the purple-clothed man's appearance, his expression immediately changed. He handed the bag containing the spirit stones to the purple-clothed man and turned to leave. When the surrounding people saw that there was no more excitement to watch, they all dispersed and went to do what they had to do. The purple-clothed man tossed the bag of spirit stones to Xiao Chen and smiled gently. "Don't be so generous next time. Here are your spirit stones." Xiao Chen caught the bag of spirit stones and looked at the handsome, imposing purple-clothed man. After thinking for a while, he said, "You are also a fiend race cultivator. Why are you helping me?" When the purple-clothed man, Jiang Zimo, saw that Xiao Chen saw through his identity, he was not too surprised. He smiled faintly and said, "I am not helping you. I am helping them. With your strength, even if their companions worked together, they would not be a match for you." Aside from the azure rhombus mark on this person's forehead, there were no other characteristics of a fiend race cultivator. In reality, when Xiao Chen said that the other party was a fiend race cultivator, it was only because of his strong mental energy. He could feel an aura that was different from that of a human from this person's body, but he could not confirm it. There was no way for Xiao Chen to confirm what kind of fiend race the other party was. Xiao Chen also felt it was strange. Why did some fiends not have any special characteristics? However, some of the fiend race cultivators had very obvious characteristics. There were also some that only had some special characteristics. Logically speaking, there should not be such a difference between fiends. Of the fiend race cultivators, the tiger race cultivators love to take advantage of others. They often threaten humans who come to the ancient desolate land for the first time. If you had only taken out 10 medial-grade spirit stones at the start, they would probably only ask for 100 medial-grade spirit stones from you. So, don't be so extravagant in the future. Jiang Zimo smiled faintly and explained unhurriedly. Xiao Chen smiled calmly and said, "In other words, I have become a sucker. You can say that." Jiang Zimo shrugged his shoulders slightly and smiled faintly. "That's right, you should have received an invitation as well, right? If so, why don't you come up with me? We will be going the same way." Xiao Chen was somewhat confused. He asked suspiciously, "What invitation? I don't know what you are talking about." That should not be the case. The other party is so young, but his aura is very long. Furthermore, his mental energy is terrifyingly strong. Logically speaking, he should have received an invitation. Jiang Zimo felt somewhat confused. He gave Xiao Chen a deep look and said, "Do you dare to receive a palm strike from me?" Xiao Chen did not understand what was going on. However, he knew that the other party did not want to fight him. The other party only wanted to test him. After hesitating for a while, he happily agreed. After all, there would not be any losses. Perhaps there might even be some unexpected benefits. Sorry for the offense. When Jiang Zimo saw Xiao Chen retreat by 100 meters, his figure flashed. Then, he sent a palm strike at Xiao Chen's face without any fancy moves. This palm strike did not have any fancy moves. It did not look very fast, either. There was not even a palm wind. There were no energy fluctuations in the space. It was very simple. In terms of aura, it was not even 1% of the tiger race cultivators. The feeling it gave was very strange. It was like a child playing house. He said he wanted to hit him, and then he hit him. It was very ordinary. However, Xiao Chen's expression suddenly changed, becoming extremely grave. He was startled in his heart. He withdrew his essence, not letting it leak out at all. He focused all his energy on his palm. Such control was truly frightening. One had to know that there were countless pores on the palm. Regardless of whether one was aware of it or not, there would always be some aura coming out of the pores. However, Jiang Zimo managed to do it. Furthermore, when he attacked, his speed was very fast. However, there was not even the sound of wind. Clearly, he had truly reached the state of being one with nature. Even some martial monarchs would not be able to do such a thing. They would need at least 10 years of bitter cultivation and startling talent before they could do it. Jiang Zimo's palm had already arrived in front of Xiaoqin. There was no time to waste, there was no time to think. Furthermore, he agreed to receive this palm strike head-on. Thus, Xiaoqin could not use a trick like the roaming dragon's 9 transformations to dodge. He could only receive it head-on. Xiaoqin clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. His bones crackled as he gathered all the vital qi in his body. The image of a tiger and a dragon circled around his arm. The dragon and tiger roared. Unlike Jiang Zimo, who was extremely ordinary, Xiaoqin raised his aura to the extreme. Since he could not completely withdraw his aura, he might as well release it with all his might. Bang! The fist and palm collided and a strong wind blew. The instant Jiang Zimo's extremely ordinary palm strike clashed, it erupted with a force that could topple mountains and overturn the seas. A strong wind blew, and Xiaoqin's hairband was blown off. His long hair fluttered in the wind and his clothes fluttered. The strong wind made it difficult to open one's eyes. The huge force traveled from Xiaoqin's arm to his feet. Then, it spread to the ground. Bang! 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 The stone tiles on the surrounding street suddenly exploded. It was dragged up by the strong qi and kept rising in the air. It spiraled around the two of them and kept spinning. Xiaoqin's palm felt sore. He nearly got knocked back. It was hard to imagine that when one was extremely calm, it would erupt with such a strong might. Furthermore, Jiang Zimo's energy was endless, growing endlessly. It was like a gushing river surging towards Xiaoqin. This cannot go on. The cultivation technique that Jiang Zimo cultivates is somewhat strange. The force of his palm strike is very uniform. From the start to the end, it did not weaken at all. Chapter 422. In terms of perseverance, Jiang Zimo would definitely last longer than Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin had to knock him back in one breath. Xiaoqin opened his eyes wide and the purple qi whirlpool in his dantian spun rapidly. He merged his essence and vital qi together. The force in his palm immediately increased explosively. Boom! The sudden increase in strength caused Jiang Zimo's body to fly back 5 steps before he slowly came to a stop. Bang! Bang! The surrounding rubble also fell to the ground. After Jiang Zimo's palm strike ended, he stopped attacking. His expression was extremely calm. He did not even need to adjust his breathing before he walked over to Xiaoqin again. Xiaoqin withdrew his fist and relaxed. He adjusted his essence for a while before the surging energy in his body slowly calmed down. When Xiaoqin saw Jiang Zimo casually sending out a palm strike, he could not help but feel even more curious about the cultivation technique that Jiang Zimo cultivated. Jiang Zimo performed a cupped fist salute and smiled. Not bad. You are the first in the same generation to knock me back with one punch. Xiaoqin smiled bitterly. What do you mean not bad? I already did my best. Looking at your calm expression, you clearly only used 20% of your strength. Jiang Zimo smiled and explained, there is no need to be humble. I also used my full strength. It is just that the cultivation technique I cultivate is rather special. Even if you beat me to the brink of death, I will still maintain this calm expression. When Xiaoqin heard this, he could not help but smile. This person's words were really humorous. He was rather broad-minded, which suited Xiaoqin's temperament. However, this cultivation technique was really strange. Using 20% of one's strength and using one's full strength would result in a completely different aura and might. The exhaustion was also different. No one would use their full strength the moment they started. If they did, their essence would be completely drained. Suddenly, a strange thought appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. Jiang Zimo's full strength might last as long as Xiao Chen's 20% strength. If that was really the case, then the other party's cultivation technique would be extremely horrifying. Jiang Zimo continued, "Your strength meets the requirements. It was their mistake not to receive an invitation. May I know your name? Which nation do you belong to? What sect do you belong to?" Xiao Chen performed a cupped fist salute and said, "I am Xiao Chen of the Great Qin Nation. I do not have a sect for now." Jiang Zimo muttered Xiao Chen's name. He found it familiar, but of course, he could not recall where he came from. "Brother Xiao Chen, how about this? On the 17th of the next month, if you have time, go to the Clear Spring Inn's backyard. I believe you will be interested. I have a recommendation for you." Clear Spring Inn, isn't this the inn where Xiaxian is? Could it be that Jiang Zimo and Xiaxian are here for the same thing? Xiao Chen set aside this thought for now and raised his head. When he saw the dignified Jiang Zimo, he said with some doubt, "Speaking of which, this seems to be our first meeting. Is there a need to be so enthusiastic?" Jiang Zimo laughed and said, "Are you afraid that I will harm you? That's right. Let's put it this way. On the 17th of next month, I'm not forcing you to come. If you're willing, just make some time to come. I promise you won't be disappointed. I'll take my leave first." "Oh right, those Tiger Tribe members will probably ambush you later. Remember to go easy on them." With a light leap, Jiang Zimo returned to the restaurant. Xiao Chen did not linger and continued to head for the largest shop in the city. In the restaurant, a silver-haired woman stood in front of a table next to the window, looking at Xiao Chen's back thoughtfully. The silver-haired woman had a pretty face, as if she was a fairy that had fallen into the mortal world. Her temperament was otherworldly, but her silver eyes did not have the slightest hint of emotion, appearing extremely cold. When he saw Jiang Zimo, he asked anxiously, "Zimo, who is that person? Which sect is he from?" When Jiang Zimo saw the silver-haired woman's anxious expression, he was astonished. This was the first time he had seen the silver-haired woman so concerned about a human cultivator. "Xinya, do you know this person?" The silver-haired woman shook her head and said, "He looks very similar to someone I know. However, his appearance is completely different." Jiang Zimo nodded and said, "He is Xiao Chen. His strength is pretty good. However, he does not belong to any sect." When the silver-haired woman heard this, she felt somewhat disappointed. She said softly, "Oh, it looks like I got the wrong person. The person I know is surnamed Yi." There were many shops in the city that specialized in selling cultivator goods. Xiao Chen stopped in front of the largest shop. The shop was simple and unadorned. It was a majestic wooden building. There were many people coming and going. It was very lively. The golden signboard above the door had the words, "Flowing Wind Pavilion," written on it. Xiao Chen followed the crowd and entered. The shop was very large. Xiao Chen looked around. There were all sorts of goods in the hall on the first floor. There was a counter for spirit weapons. There were rows of wooden shelves filled with all sorts of spirit weapons. The ranks of the spirit weapons were all there as well. There were even several hundred profound ranked spirit weapons and above. Beside the counter for spirit weapons, there were shelves for all sorts of battle armors. The shelves for spirit weapons and battle armors formed a circular area for weapons. The circular area for weapons was in the center of the hall. The shelves along the walls had all sorts of spirit pills and herbs, as well as lingji of different ages. The entire arrangement was very scientific. When Xiao Chen stood there, he felt like he was in a supermarket in his previous life. However, it was more ancient than a modern supermarket. It was more natural. "This young hero, are you looking for spirit weapons, battle armors, or custom-made weapons?" Our shop is one of the few partners of the heavenly craft manor in the ancient desolate land. We can fulfill any request you have. When a manservant saw Xiao Chen strolling in front of the weapons area, he quickly smiled and greeted him warmly. When this manservant spoke about the heavenly craft manor, he was very pleased. It was like being able to work with the heavenly craft manor was something incredible. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, I am not buying anything. I have something to sell. Will the Flowing Wind Pavilion accept it? The smile on the manservant's face did not change. He said, Of course we will. Take the stairs over there. After you pass the treasure pavilion on the second floor, you will go up to the third floor. There is a professional appraiser there to help appraise the items. I guarantee that young hero will not suffer a loss. There were very few people in the treasure pavilion. It was less than half of the hall. Xiao Chen took a look and roughly understood what was going on. This treasure pavilion originally sold all sorts of cultivation techniques and martial technique. There were also some inferior-grade secret treasures, some rare medicinal pills, and all sorts of high-ranked ores. They were all very expensive, so it made sense that only a small portion of martial artists could afford to buy them. Xiao Chen continued walking forward and arrived at the third floor of the Flowing Wind Pavilion. Compared to the second floor, there were even fewer people on the third floor. It was also much quieter. There was no bustle or clamor like the first floor. Everyone waited quietly. Xiao Chen sat on a wooden chair. Immediately, a maidservant came over to serve him tea. Her service was very thorough. Xiao Chen picked up the teacup and took a sip. Then, he asked the maidservant, How long do I have to wait before it is my turn? The maidservant smiled and said, Young hero, in order to maintain the fairness of transactions, the appraisal hall of the Flowing Wind Pavilion can only entertain 3 customers at a time. Some treasures are very easy to appraise, while others are very difficult. It is hard to say how long it will take. Xiao Chen looked at the number of people waiting. It looked like it would take at least 2 hours. So, Xiao Chen put down the teacup and closed his eyes to take a nap. Fortunately, he was quite patient and didn't feel particularly bored. The people beside him, on the other hand, couldn't stay idle and started chatting. Have you heard? The Holy Fire Manor's 7th elder, Qin Feng, led people to the demon battlefield to kill blood demons. They lost 3 half-step martial monarchs. The peak high-rank blood demon that they managed to kill with great difficulty was snatched away. Suddenly, someone mentioned the matters of the demon battlefield. The Holy Fire Manor was considered a major force in the southern island. Upon hearing about the Holy Fire Manor, the others in the hall also became interested. A yellow-robed cultivator asked, When did this happen? Why did we not hear any news about it? News from a week ago, of course I wouldn't hear it. Right now, it has only spread to Monolith Island and Holy Fire Manor's headquarters, Holy Fire Island. I reckon it won't be long before it spreads to the entire southern islands. The green-robed cultivator who spoke first said proudly. Who is so powerful? To be able to snatch away a peak high-rank blood demon from under the noses of 10-odd half-step martial monarchs, he must be at least a martial monarch. The green-robed cultivator laughed loudly and said, Wrong, very wrong. Why don't you think about it? Why would a martial monarch want a peak high-rank blood demon's demon core? They have already opened their sea of consciousness. If they wanted to use it, they would use the demon core of a blood demon general. The demon core of a blood demon is not very useful to them. Then it must be a peak half-step martial monarch who snatched it away. Coincidentally, they need a peak high-rank blood demon's demon core to open their sea of consciousness. The green-robed cultivator continued, Wrong again. The person who snatched away their demon core is just an inferior-grade martial king. Not only did he snatch away the demon core, but he also snatched away the 3 medial-grade secret treasures and the corpses of 3 half-step martial monarchs. How can this be? How could an inferior-grade martial king do all this under the noses of so many half-step martial monarchs? That is absolutely impossible. You are exaggerating. The people at the side all shook their heads and revealed doubtful expressions. They felt that the green-robed cultivator's words could not be trusted. The green-robed cultivator smiled faintly and did not bother to refute. It is up to you whether you believe me or not. Soon, you will be able to prove whether what I said is true or not. This topic continued for a while. Then, someone brought up a new topic. The trial of the ancient desolate tower seems to be starting again. I wonder how many people will qualify to enter this time. This time, there will probably be more people than in the past. There are too many geniuses in this generation. It will be difficult for the Great Gene Nation to continue dominating the five-nation youth competition. I don't think so. In the Tianwu continent, the Great Gene Nation has the most spirit veins. There will only be more geniuses. It will be difficult for the other four nations to occupy the top 10. Let's wait and see the results of the ancient desolate tower. If someone can reach the 7th floor, they will have a chance. It will be difficult. Aside from the group of people from the Thunder Emperor's time, no one has been able to reach the 7th floor in the past few thousand years. Right now, it is just the beginning of the flourishing era of cultivators. We will have to wait for at least another 10 years. Chapter 423. The trial of the ancient desolate tower is about to begin? Could it have something to do with Jiang Zimo and Xia Xian's matter? Xiao Chen opened his eyes. Xiao Chen revealed great interest in the topic everyone was talking about. So, he decided to ask about it. Young hero, it is your turn. At this moment, a charming young girl walked over leisurely and softly said with a smile. Xiao Chen could only give up for now. However, now that he knew the clues to the ancient desolate tower, it would be easier for him to find out more information when he came out. Xiao Chen stood up and followed the maidservant into a treasure inspection hall in front. When the cultivator in green who spoke first saw Xiao Chen suddenly stand up, he entered deep thought. Earlier, when Xiao Chen was sitting there, he did not attract his attention. However, when the cultivator looked at Xiao Chen's back, he started to think. They are all white-robed cultivators, inferior-grade martial kings, and no older than 20. Unfortunately, I do not see his saber. It should be in his spatial ring. The cultivator in green thought to himself, I should follow him closely. If he is really a bladesman, it is very likely that he is that person. Inside the treasure inspection hall, an old man was drinking tea. When he saw Xiao Chen enter, he smiled and said, I am the Flowing Wind Pavilion's old ma. Young hero, are you selling something? Take it out and let me see. Xiao Chen nodded and did not say anything. He pointed the universe ring at the center of the hall, and a large pile of items fell like rain. When the noise stopped, there was a 1-meter-tall pile of miscellaneous items in the hall. Old Ma nearly spat out the tea in his mouth. Old Ma swallowed the tea with some difficulty. His expression was somewhat unsightly as he said, Little brother, are you here to cause trouble? What kind of place is my Flowing Wind Pavilion? To think that you are using a pile of street goods to brush me off. Clearly, the other party did not think that all these items were valuable. He felt that Xiao Chen was here to make fun of him. Xiao Chen sat down calmly and said, Whether they are street goods or not, you will know when you see for yourself. Seeing how confident Xiao Chen was, Senior Ma hesitated for a moment before squatting down dubiously. Then, he casually picked up a bottle of pills and looked at it. When Xiao Chen opened the bottle, a fragrance wafted out. Old Ma took a deep breath, and his expression changed. He said, This is a rank 6 medicinal pill, an earth spirit pill. When consumed by a martial saint, it can greatly increase their cultivation. It is worth 10,000 inferior-grade spirit stones. As he spoke, he quickly picked up a yellowing secret manual and read it. This is an inferior-grade earth-ranked cultivation technique. It can be used until Martial King. It is worth 100,000 inferior grade spirit stones. There are also 10 low-grade earth-ranked spirit weapons. This is a 300-year-old snow ginseng, this is a battle armor, this is a high-grade earth-ranked martial technique, and this is a low-grade secret treasure. With every sentence that Xiao Chen spoke, Senior Ma's expression changed. How was this something that could be found in a street stall? He had really misjudged it earlier. Although the value of each item wasn't top-notch, a single one of them couldn't pique his interest at all. However, looking at the quantity, there were at least 1,000 of them. When added together, the value was startling. With so many miscellaneous items on one person, this person either robbed a strong clan or killed many high-ranked cultivators. Senior Ma's thoughts raced. When he saw that Xiao Chen was not even 20 years old, no matter which one it was, this youth's strength was unfathomable. He was not as simple as he looked. Senior Ma no longer delayed Xiao Chen like before. He stood up and performed a cupped fist salute. He said, "Sorry for the offense earlier. This old man misjudged it. I hope little brother does not take it to heart." Xiao Chen said indifferently, "It's not a problem. Just help me appraise them quickly. I only do business, I do not care about anything else." It was unrealistic to rely on Senior Ma to appraise so many items by himself. Senior Ma called over a maidservant and gave her some instructions. After 1 hour, 10 young appraisers came out from the back door of the appraisal hall. Senior Ma explained, they were transferred from another branch. Don't worry. Don't look down on them because they are young. They should have no problems dealing with your items. Xiao Chen nodded and did not have any objections. 2 hours later, under the laborious appraisal of 10 appraisers, the various miscellaneous items in the forest were finally appraised. The 10 appraisers from the other branches took their leave. Now, only Xiao Chen and Senior Ma remained in the appraisal hall. Holding a list, Senior Ma looked somewhat fatigued. He said to Xiao Chen, "Little brother, take a look. They are worth a total of 3 million inferior grade spirit stones. If converted to medial grade spirit stones, that would be 25,000. These are the rules. You should know about them." Xiao Chen looked through the list and indicated that he had no objections. As for the so-called rules, Xiao Chen already knew about them long ago. Naturally, he would not say anything. Senior Ma smiled gently and said, "That's good. Take out your ancient desolate pass. We will sign it, and the spirit stones will be yours immediately." When Xiao Chen heard this, he could not help but be stunned. He had not expected the transaction to require an ancient desolate pass. He could not help but feel somewhat depressed. "I have not gone to apply for an ancient desolate pass yet. Can I make the transaction?" Senior Ma frowned slightly, clearly stunned. This youth had just arrived in the ancient desolate land. He had not even applied for an ancient desolate pass. This is a little difficult. It is not that this old man is making things difficult for you, but without an ancient desolate pass for such a large transaction, the taxes will be very high, Senior Ma explained softly. Since it was just a matter of money, then it was easy to resolve. Xiao Chen said, "How about this? Give me the receipt for 25,000 medial grade spirit stones. I will only take 20,000 medial grade spirit stones. How about that?" The miscellaneous items in this transaction could be considered extra gains for Xiao Chen. It did not matter how much he earned. It would be troublesome to apply for an ancient desolate pass later. Senior Ma understood. He knew why Xiao Chen was so generous. This pile of treasures must have been obtained from killing others. Now, he was in a rush to make a move. However, Senior Ma still reminded Xiao Chen, "You have to think it through. It will take you less than half a day to apply for an ancient desolate pass. You will be able to save 5,000 medial grade spirit stones." Xiao Chen shook his head and said, "There is no need. I have already made up my mind." After the two signed the contract, Senior Ma immediately took out boxes of spirit stones for Xiao Chen to count. After checking with his spiritual sense, Xiao Chen confirmed that the numbers were correct. Then, He tossed them into his universe ring. With this, Xiao Chen's universe ring became much emptier. He now had more than 150,000 medial-grade spirit stones, 1,000,000 inferior-grade spirit stones, and 100 invaluable superior-grade spirit stones. After leaving the inspection hall, Xiao Chen looked around. He saw that the cultivator in green had not left yet. Furthermore, when the cultivator saw Xiao Chen come out, his eyelids twitched. That's not right. A regular transaction would not take more than 15 minutes. Logically speaking, he should have left long ago. Xiao Chen noticed that the cultivators he was chatting with earlier had already left. All that remained were cultivators he was unfamiliar with. He knows about the situation on Boulder Island. He must be suspicious of me. Xiao Chen kept this in mind. His expression did not change as he walked down the stairs. Not long after Xiao Chen left the Flowing Wind Pavilion, his spiritual sense immediately detected a figure following him. It was that cultivator in green. This person is a superior-grade martial king. If he sneak attacks me, he will pose a threat to me. However, since I have already noticed him, it is not a big deal. Coincidentally, he should know about the ancient desolate tower. If he tries to harm me, I can capture him and ask him about it. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen's lips curled up in an arc. He walked forward unhurriedly, pretending that he did not know anything. Soon, Xiao Chen arrived at a rather desolate alley. When he saw the surrounding people and the desolate environment, he nodded slightly. This is the place. Bang! Just at this moment, 4 ferocious tiger race cultivators leaped out from both sides of the alley. They were tall and strong, and they surrounded Xiao Chen from all directions. They were more than 2 meters tall, blocking the sunlight and casting a large shadow. They were the tiger race cultivators that Xiao Chen had offended earlier. The tiger race cultivator that Jiang Zimo forced back earlier was filled with killing qi. He walked over to Xiao Chen and smiled coldly. Brat, I told you to hand over 2,000 medial-grade spirit stones first, but you did not. Now I will chop off one of your legs and let you know what regret is. Is that so? Unfortunately, you are not able to do that. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. Jiang Zimo was right. With a flip of his palm, the lunar shadow saber instantly appeared in his hand. The 4 tiger race cultivators were all medial-grade martial kings. When they worked together, they were quite strong. Unfortunately, with one look, it was clear that these people were not the core cultivators of the fiend race. They had not practiced any strong martial techniques or cultivation technique. When Xiao Chen used his full power, they did not stand a chance. After 15 minutes, the 4 tiger race cultivators lay on the ground, moaning non-stop. Occasionally, electricity flickered on the wounds of various sizes on their bodies. Following Jiang Zimo's instructions, Xiao Chen did not deal a heavy blow. Although their wounds looked horrifying, they did not injure any vital point. He only taught them a lesson. Scram. I will only obey Jiang Zimo's words once. Don't let me see you again. Xiao Chen returned the lunar shadow saber to its scabbard and snorted coldly. The tiger race cultivators felt like they had been relieved of a heavy burden. They knew they had kicked a metal plate, so they quickly got up and fled. Not bad, what a beautiful saber technique. Even when fighting 1 against 4, you are still able to hold an overwhelming advantage. At some point in time, the cultivator in green was already standing on the wall of the alley. The sunlight shone down from his back, obscuring his appearance. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, After following me for so long, you finally could not endure it any longer. The cultivator in green shrugged his shoulders. He was not surprised that Xiao Chen noticed him. He asked, Did you go to Boulder Island a week ago? Xiao Chen did not answer the cultivator in green's question directly. He took out the peak high-rank Blood Demon's demon core from his universe ring and said, You want this, right? The cultivator in green smiled and said, Very good, you can die now. I will hand your head to the Holy Fire Manor and exchange it for a bounty. That will allow you to make the most of your value. After he spoke, the cultivator in green leaped down from the wall and chopped twice in the air. A sharp palm wind flew at Xiao Chen like a sharp saber. Xiao Chen drew the lunar shadow saber again. Purple electricity flickered as he chopped the palm wind in half. Huge whale palm! The cultivator in green shouted, and a faint mist appeared in the surroundings. The ground of the alley turned into soft water, rippling continuously. Xiao Chen lost his balance and started to sway along with the water. What a powerful state of water! This person is not an ordinary superior-grade martial king. No wonder he is so confident. Chapter 424. A huge whale made of quintessence appeared behind the green-robed guest. He pulled it out with his palm strike. The huge whale opened its jaws, revealing sharp teeth that gleamed with a cold light. Then, it charged at Xiao Chen. The green-robed guest was very confident in this palm strike. He believed that with this palm strike, he would be able to kill Xiao Chen quickly. The green-robed guest had already practiced this palm strike to 100% perfection. Furthermore, he cultivated the state of water. With these two complementing each other, the might of this move would be able to display a twelfth of its might. Not only was it very mighty, but the strong mysterious phenomenon would also break the opponent's movement technique, preventing them from dodging. Several cultivators stronger than the green-robed guest had died under this palm strike. Even if an inferior-grade martial king could block it, he would be severely injured. Xiao Chen circulated his vital qi and rooted himself to the ground. He instantly increased his weight by 50,000 kilograms. Then, he firmly planted himself to the ground without any fluctuations. When Xiao Chen saw the huge whale flying at him, he did not dare to be careless. He circulated his state of thunder to its limits and thunder roared in the sky. Wukue shakes the heavens! Xiao Chen shouted and hacked down with the lunar shadow saber. The divine Wukue tree was like a mountain. It carried a boundless electric energy as it clashed with the huge whale. Of the Wukue saber techniques, Wukue shakes the heavens was the strongest move when clashing head-on. There were no techniques involved. It simply turned the vast state of thunder into a strong force. The stronger the state and the denser the essence, the stronger the might of this move. Since the other party wanted to clash head-on, then Xiao Chen would give him this opportunity. Let's see who was stronger. Bang! The huge whale made of quintessence clashed with the divine Wukue tree. A strong force immediately burst forth. Thunder and water roared, and the walls of the alley immediately crumbled. The huge whale made of essence lasted for a moment before it scattered. However, the light of Xiao Chen's Wukue tree dimmed slightly, but it did not disappear. The Wukue tree landed on the ground with a pause sound. The rippling ground also calmed down. The other party's state of water was broken. The green-robed cultivator paled. He took a few steps back before he came to a stop. He could not believe that Xiao Chen had broken his palm strike. The green-robed cultivator suppressed the surging essence in his body and smiled coldly. You have some strength. No wonder you can strengthen that demon core. However, you still have to die. Wild dance of whales. Waves of water instantly appeared on the ground. Those were not illusions, but real waves of water. Xiao Chen frowned slightly when he saw his pants soaked by the waves. He pushed off the ground, wanting to fly out. However, he discovered that there seemed to be a pair of invisible hands in the water grabbing his legs. More than 100 whales made of essence appeared behind the azure-robed cultivator. They hissed as their auras merged and soared into the sky. This chaotic dance of whales is comparable to an inferior-grade heaven-ranked martial technique. I can only use it once every 3 months. Unless you are a half-step martial monarch, you can forget about breaking out. Die. This chaotic dance of whales is comparable to an inferior-grade heaven-ranked martial technique. I can only use it once every 3 months. Unless you are a half-step martial monarch, you can forget about breaking out. Die. The green-robed cultivator laughed maniacally. More than 100 whales made of essence covered the sky as they flew towards Xiao Chen. The scarlet throne mark on Xiao Chen's forehead immediately appeared. His aura also changed. The state of massacre started to merge with the lightning. The purple and red lights on the lunar shadow saber flickered continuously. Kassier. The saber hovered above the water for a while. There was a flash of saber light, and the formless hands around Xiao Chen's legs were instantly chopped in half. State of massacre. The green-robed cultivator was startled. He quickly controlled the essence whales to move faster. The hundreds of whales suddenly accelerated midway. Xiao Chen grasped his saber with both hands and activated the blood flame shoes. Then, he quickly moved through the huge whales. Saber lights danced around, containing the killing chi of the state of massacre. With every saber strike, the essence whales were chopped into countless pieces. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions resounded continuously in the narrow space. The berserk energy of water spread wildly in all directions. Xiao Chen executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art to its limit. He left behind afterimages in the air. With the help of the blood flame shoes, his speed reached Mach 3. 5. Xiao Chen was able to dodge the moment the essence whales exploded. It was like a storm raging on the sea. Huge waves soared into the sky as Xiao Chen moved around. However, he did not get hit by the waves. Instead, he hacked down with his saber. The boundless electric light and the state of massacre hidden in the electric light seemed to be suppressing the huge waves. Damn it! Unexpectedly, he comprehended two states at the same time. Furthermore, his speed is so fast. When the green-robed cultivator saw Xiao Chen hack apart the huge whales, he revealed a horrified expression. He hesitated for a moment, but when he looked in another direction, he persevered. Fortunately, he had made preparations in advance. He knew that this fellow could escape from 15 half-step martial monarch. He should be a genius cultivator who could fight above his cultivation realm. Hence, when the green-robed cultivator made up his mind, he used a messenger bird to inform his companions. As long as he could hold on for a while longer, when his companions arrived, he would be able to capture this fellow. A peak high-rank blood demon's demon core was worth the risk. Whether it was sold or used to open his sea of consciousness, it would be worth cities. Thinking of this, the green-robed cultivator's expression slowly turned resolute. When Xiao Chen killed the final essence whale, his figure flashed. A palm wind rang out by Xiao Chen's ear. He sensed the other party attacking from an extremely tricky angle. Without turning around, Xiao Chen sent out an arc-light chop. A purple and red saber light moved in a strange arc, forming a semicircle that encased Xiao Chen's body. Bang! When the green-robed cultivator's palm wind struck the arc-light chop, it exploded. A shockwave blasted the green-robed cultivator back. Xiao Chen took advantage of this opportunity to quickly turn around. He looked at the pale green-robed cultivator and said calmly, "Even now, you still have not tried to flee. You still have companions, right?" The green-robed cultivator was startled. However, he did not answer Xiao Chen. Instead, he charged over again. From the other party's expression, Xiao Chen already knew the answer he wanted. He said indifferently, "You overestimate yourself. If you have not comprehended the state of water to its limits, you would not be qualified to fight me." Thunder rumbled as Xiao Chen took a big step forward. His aura flourished as he charged forward, using offense as defense. The berserk energy combined with the boundless state of massacre completely suppressed the green-robed cultivator's aura, forcing him to retreat continuously. Pu Ci. Finding an opportunity, Xiao Chen swung his saber and broke through the weakest part of the other party's palm wind, leaving a wound on his chest. Chop! With this strike succeeding, Xiao Chen did not give the green-robed cultivator a chance to react. He used the most direct move of the 8 saber techniques and hacked down diagonally. Pa! In the time it took for a spark to fly, the green-robed cultivator clasped his palms together and clamped down on Xiao Chen's saber. Xiao Chen smiled coldly to himself. You dare to use your bare hands to clamp down on my saber? Thunder, explode. The electric light infused with the state of massacre instantly exploded, easily breaking the essence that the green-robed cultivator had on his palms. As the electric light flashed, the green-robed cultivator's palms immediately swelled up. Xiao Chen's saber continued to hack down. A saber light flashed and landed on the other party's inner vest. ZZ. The scarlet electric light crackled and flickered on the saber, creating a long electric light. With the aid of the state of massacre, it easily broke through the other party's inferior-grade inner vest. The green-robed cultivator's skin tore open, leaving a 1-meter-deep wound on his chest. Blood and flesh were clearly visible. The electric light leaped around the wound, causing the green-robed cultivator's face to twitch in pain. Xiao Chen took a step forward. Before the green-robed cultivator could flee, he placed his saber on his neck. If you don't want to die, then don't move. Answer my question. Dida. Dida. The green-robed cultivator's chest had a bone-deep wound. Blood dripped down continuously. His expression was one of extreme pain, but he did not seem dispirited. Do you think I will believe you? If you want to kill me, then just kill me. I have long since come to this ancient, desolate land. If I do not climb up by stepping on the corpses of others, I will die under the saber of others, becoming their stepping stone. The green-robed cultivator's resolve was rather high. However, Xiao Chen was still confident of getting the answer he wanted. As the saber pressed against the other party's neck, Xiao Chen moved forward a little. Do you think you have a choice? If you answer my question, I can buy you some time. Who knows, when your companions arrive, you might still have a chance to live. If you don't answer, I will kill you now. The green-robed cultivator's neck was scratched. As death approached, the green-robed cultivator's instinctive fear finally made him submit. Xiao Chen's final words ignited his hope. If his companions arrived early, they might be able to save his life. Ask away. Very good. What is going on with the ancient, desolate tower? Tell me in detail, Xiao Chen said with a calm gaze. When the green-robed cultivator heard this, he could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He had thought it was some incredible secret. It turned out that it was just that. In that case, there was no need for him to continue pressing on. In Desolate City, there was a stone tower that had existed for an unknown period of time. It was said that it had existed since the ancient era. There were many mysteries in the tower. There were strong martial techniques, mysterious secret treasures, profound cultivation techniques, and even holy weapons that came from outer space. All sorts of things that cultivators dreamed of could be obtained in there. Cultivating in the tower could even increase one's cultivation speed. The tower had 9 floors. The higher one went, the more benefits there would be. Furthermore, the strangest thing was that this stone tower only allowed youths below the age of 25 to enter. Once one's bone age exceeded the limit, no matter what cultivation realm one had, even if it was Emperor Wu, one would not be able to enter. It was like a land of fortuitous encounters prepared for geniuses. The green-robed cultivator continued, Of course, if you want to enter, there are many difficulties. The ancient desolate tower opens once every 2 years. First, you have to pass some external tests. Then, you have to compete for a limited number of spots. Finally, you have to pass the test of the ancient desolate tower itself. Hu Qi. Just as Xiao Chen was about to ask how to qualify for the test, a golden dart suddenly flew towards his forehead. The golden dart was very dazzling. It was like a golden sun. It hurt Xiao Chen's eyes. Chapter 425. Its speed was incredibly fast, reaching Mach 4. Furthermore, it contained an extremely tyrannical energy. Its aura was startling. It was not like a dart but a sword that could move the 9 heavens. It was incredibly dense. Everywhere it passed, it pierced through the air like it was a thin piece of paper, leaving behind a long, thin crack. Xiao Chen felt a dangerous aura. The black-winged blood flame eagle on the blood flame shoes flickered with light. His speed instantly reached Mach 4 as he dodged to the side. Xiao! A figure followed closely behind the dart. Then, he pulled the golden dart back. Then, he grabbed the cultivator in green and retreated at lightning speed. Just as Xiao Chen was about to give chase, a few auras of half-stepped martial monarchs came from the city and quickly headed in his direction. They should be the administrators of the city. They must have sensed the battle here and came to check it out. Not wanting to cause any more trouble, Xiao Chen quickly left in another direction. Qin Pingyu, why didn't you help me kill him? The cultivator in green questioned the cultivator beside him after he was rescued. The cultivator called Qin Pingyu played with a golden dart in his hand. He smiled faintly and said, "Let's go back first. I can only use my golden flash once a day. Furthermore, the people from the city lord's residence are here. Let's not talk about this anymore. Are you sure it is him?" The cultivator in green nodded and said, "I am sure. I saw him take out that peak high-rank blood demon's demon core." When Qin Pingyu heard that it was a peak high-rank blood demon's demon core, a greedy look flashed in his eyes. He said, "That's good. Keep an eye on him first. We will make our move after he leaves the city. You can take this opportunity to recuperate. Give me 1 month. When my comprehension of the state of water reaches its peak, I will personally kill this brat," the cultivator in green said ruthlessly. Back in Heavenly Spring City, Xiao Chen spent some inferior-grade spirit stones to find a courtyard for cultivators. Aside from bedrooms, such courtyards also had specialized cultivation rooms, dueling grounds for practicing martial techniques, and all sorts of equipment for tempering one's strength. If one spent some money, one could even find a training partner. Inside the cultivation room, Xiao Chen took out the firmament body tempering art. His strength had already reached 150,000 kilograms of force. After dealing with the miscellaneous items in the universe ring, it was time to practice this heaven-ranked body tempering technique. Xiao Chen already had a rough idea of the ancient desolate tower from the cultivator in green. Without a doubt, it was a place that geniuses must go. Although they did not know how to get there, the most basic requirement was probably their own strength. If one didn't have the strength, even if they knew the way to enter, they wouldn't be able to pass the test. As for the clear spring in that Jiang Zimo mentioned on the 17th of next month, it was likely related to this. Xiao Chen also thought of going there to take a look. However, before that, raising his own strength was undoubtedly the most important thing. At the very least, Xiao Chen was not confident of defeating Jiang Zimo. It would be difficult for Xiao Chen to advance to medial-grade martial king within a short period of time. This was because Xiao Chen's foundation was much larger than that of ordinary people. If it were other inferior-grade martial kings, their essence would be like a clear pond, and a regular genius's essence would be like a gushing river. However, Xiao Chen's essence would be like a vast ocean. Aside from regular peak geniuses, very few could surpass Xiao Chen. Just his heaven-ranked cultivation technique, the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation, could leave many people in the dust. Furthermore, Xiao Chen had consumed all sorts of spirit herbs in the herb garden. As a result, his essence was much larger than that of a regular cultivator's. This made it even more difficult for Xiao Chen to advance. It was like a tall building built from flat ground. Xiao Chen's foundation was several times that of a regular cultivator's. Even if Xiao Chen wanted to reach the 5th floor, he would spend more time than others. However, as long as he reached the height, the space inside would be several times that of a regular person. Thus, for the time being, Xiao Chen intended to focus on tempering his physical body, focusing on cultivating the firmament body tempering art. The firmament body tempering art had a total of 12 layers. The first 3 layers were the foundation. They mainly strengthened the bones, flesh, and meridians. Starting from the 4th layer, the firmament body tempering art would increase the cultivator's vital qi. Every 3 layers was a huge hurdle. After every layer, one's vital qi would increase by leaps and bounds. Xiao Chun closed the Firmament Body Tempering Arts secret manual and sat cross-legged on the prayer mat. Then, he closed his eyes. Xiao Chun started to circulate the vital qi in his body. He followed the Firmament Body Tempering Arts method and started to cultivate the inferior grade heaven-ranked body tempering art. Vital qi was different from essence. In layman's terms, it was the strength that a cultivator could circulate when they were not using their essence. In reality, as long as one was an ordinary person, they would have some strength. However, only cultivators who cultivated the body tempering art would be able to skillfully control their vital qi. They would be able to circulate their vital qi like essence, achieving the effect of tempering the body. They would even be able to release their vital qi. They would be able to split mountains, shatter rocks, and fly. Of course, they would have to cultivate to a relatively deep realm before they could do that. 3 days later, Xiao Chun successfully broke through to the Firmament Body Tempering Art's first layer. All the bones in his body crackled continuously, becoming even tougher and unbreakable. At the same time, Xiao Chen's bones underwent an earth-shattering change. His bones started to tremble from the inside out. This feeling was extremely painful. It was like someone had stabbed a steel needle into his bones. All the bones in his body were pierced by tens of thousands of steel needles. Xiao Chun clenched his teeth and endured. He did his best to prevent his mind from collapsing under this bone-shattering pain. The pain lasted for an hour before it slowly subsided. Finally, a warm current flowed quickly through his bone marrow. The earlier pain was swept away, making him feel very comfortable. If one looked carefully, one would discover that Xiao Chen's delicate body had become even more robust. The lines on his face looked like they were carved by a knife. They were very sharp, very distinct, and very handsome. After enduring it, Xiao Chun continued to work hard and started to break through to the Firmament Body Tempering Art's second layer. The first layer was tempering the bones. The second layer was tempering the blood. Blood referred to the flesh and skin, not just the blood. Time went by slowly. Xiao Chun cultivated bitterly day and night. With the aid of the fasting pill, he even saved time for meals. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. Xiao Chun was finally about to break through to the Firmament Body Tempering Art's second layer. This was different from tempering the bones. The tempering of the flesh and blood did not cause much pain. It was just an unbearable itch. The skin and flesh on his bones wriggled continuously, making him restless. He wished he could stop breaking through immediately. Xiao Chen's expression was very conflicted. He smiled faintly. It felt like there were countless caterpillars moving around in his flesh. Xiao Chun guarded his mind and did his best to calm himself down, to forget that unbearable itch. This state lasted for 2 hours before it stopped. Xiao Chun nearly could not endure it anymore. Compared to the pain of his broken bones, this feeling was even more unbearable. No wonder so many cultivators in the continent were not willing to cultivate the body tempering art. Just this kind of torture was enough to make a regular cultivator shrink back. After Xiao Chun successfully broke through to the second layer, his flesh underwent an earth-shattering change. However, there were no obvious changes on the surface. However, the muscles on Xiao Chen's arms and limbs started to swell. His originally delicate figure now looked much more muscular. Next up was the third layer. The third layer tempered the meridians. It was also the most important layer of the foundation. Meridians were the foundation of a cultivator. If the meridians were crippled, the cultivator would be crippled. No matter how powerful they were, they would not be able to use them. If a cultivator could truly temper their meridians, there would be many benefits. When the meridians became tougher, the cultivator would be able to use more essence, and would not have to worry about the meridians bursting. The might of the various martial techniques would immediately increase by a level. This was the visible benefit. As for the invisible benefits, there were even more. Breaking through to the third level wasn't something that could be done in one go after a period of preparation. Instead, Xiao Chen needed to continuously expand his meridians and prepare carefully at all times. He could not be too impatient or too timid. If he was too impatient, he would injure his meridians. That would be equivalent to crippling his cultivation. If he used too little, there would be no effect at all, it would just be a waste of time. Xiao Chen needed to focus at every moment of the day, exhausting a large amount of mental energy. He could not relax for even a moment to expand and temper his meridians. After half a month, Xiao Chen finally opened his eyes. He had a fatigued expression on his face. His eyes were sunken, and he did not look spirited at all. However, there was an unconcealable joy in the depths of his eyes. After persevering for half a month, he had finally reaped some benefit. Xiao Chen had finally broken through to the third layer of the firmament body tempering art. After spending more than 20 days, he had completely laid down the foundations of the firmament body tempering art. All that remained was to consolidate his foundations and make preparations to break through to the fourth layer at any time. Although the difference between Xiao Chen and Bai Lishi, who had managed to cultivate the fourth layer and break through to the fifth layer in 1 month, was quite large, Xiao Chen was still very satisfied. It looked like, with the help of the flowing light marigold, Xiao Chen's comprehension ability had improved significantly. Otherwise, he would not have used only 20-odd days to cultivate to the third layer. Xiao Chen stood up with much difficulty. He wanted to go out and take a breather to recover his mental energy. Who knew, the moment he took a step, his body would sway and he would collapse. Xiao Chen struggled to keep his eyelids open. He felt sleepy and actually fell asleep on the ground. Half a month of intense mental energy exhaustion was much greater than Xiao Chen had imagined. Even with his vast mental energy, he could not hold on for much longer. In reality, at such a cultivation realm, only Xiao Chen would dare to expend energy like this day and night. No one else in the same generation would be able to do so. This sleep lasted for 2 days and 2 nights before Xiao Chen woke up. He had recovered most of his exhausted mental energy. Gurgle, gurgle. Xiao Chen's stomach growled in hunger. He sat on the ground and smiled bitterly. The effects of the fasting pill have worn off for a few days already. I have to take a bath and eat a big meal to ease my hunger. Xiao Chen got up and walked out of the cultivation room. When he arrived at the courtyard, he rang the bell in front of the courtyard. Soon, a pretty maidservant walked over. This was a small courtyard for cultivators to cultivate in. It was provided by a very strong power. It had all sorts of services available. Naturally, there was food and hot water. Of course, this was all on the premise that one was willing to spend spirit stones. If one was willing to spend a lot of money, they could even provide a courtyard with spiritual energy comparable to the heavenly saber pavilions. Chapter 426. The maidservant looked at Xiao Chen and asked, "Young hero, do you have any instructions?" Xiao Chen said softly, "Prepare some hot water and a table of food." "That's right, help me call a sparring partner over as well." The maidservant remembered everything. After Xiao Chen finished, she said, "What rank do you need to be a sparring partner?" "The fees vary according to rank." Xiao Chen thought for a while before saying, "Peak Superior Grade Martial King." The maidservant was mildly startled. "Peak Superior Grade Martial King. This youth is clearly only an inferior grade Martial King. He wants to find a sparring partner 2 ranks higher than him? Isn't he overestimating himself?" Seeing that the maidservant did not move, Xiao Chen could not help but frown. He said, "What's wrong? Have they all been called away? In that case, you can bring a superior grade Martial King." No, there is someone. However, we will have to wait a little longer. The fee is 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones for 15 minutes, the maidservant quickly said after she recovered her wits. 10,000 inferior grade spirit stones for 15 minutes? To a peak superior grade Martial King, this was not particularly expensive. Xiao Chen took out the wooden box containing 5,000 inferior grade spirit stones. he said. As long as someone comes, it is good. I do not mind waiting a little longer. The maidservant counted the spirit stones and placed them in her spatial ring. Then, she went to make preparations. The hot water arrived first. As Xiao Chen soaked comfortably in the bathtub, he completely relaxed. After soaking in the water, the fatigue from cultivating for half a month was completely swept away. His entire being felt refreshed, and he felt 100 times more spirited. After changing his clothes, Xiao Chen hesitated for a while as he prepared to put on the clear wind robes. It was not because his clothes were dirty. This kind of secret treasure had an automatic cleaning ability. It was definitely cleaner than washing it. Even ordinary holes could be repaired automatically. There would not be any problems even if he wore it for 10 years. The key was that the color of his clothes was too conspicuous. Back at the Flowing Wind Pavilion, the cultivator in green had followed him because of his attire. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen used a small technique in the shape-shifting spell to change the color of his clothes to blue. As for changing his appearance, Xiao Chen did not give it much thought. Even if he did not like it, it was not to that extent. It was just a holy fire manner. After going out, the table in the hall was already filled with dishes and wine. Not having eaten for a long time, Xiao Chen's appetite had greatly increased, and he devoured the food like a mountain sweeping away the clouds. After the food was completely digested, Xiao Chen slowly walked into the courtyard. At some point in time, a middle-aged man with an awe-inspiring aura was already standing there. Xiao Chen felt the other party's aura. Based on his cultivation, he was indeed a peak superior grade martial disciple. However, he did not know if his state had reached great perfection. "I'm Lu Yu. Can we begin?" the middle-aged man said indifferently. He looked at Xiao Chen from head to toe and did not pay any more attention to him. However, an ordinary inferior-grade martial king was not worth paying too much attention to. Xiao Chen nodded and said, "Yes, I can." Lu Yu took out an hourglass and placed it upside down on the stone table. The sand started to fall slowly. His lips twitched as he said, "My time is limited. Whatever you want me to do, do it quickly. I am only good with my fists and legs. I can forget about weapons." A cultivator that was good with his fists and legs was what Xiao Chen wanted. "Just punch me with your full power." Lu Yu was stunned. He suspected that he heard wrong. Is this brat trying to be funny? What if I kill you? It was not that Lu Yu had never received such a request before. However, if he wanted to punch an inferior-grade martial king, he would be seeking death. There is no need to overthink. I am confident. When Xiao Chen saw that Lu Yu did not make a move, he continued. Xiao Chen's physical body was originally made of dragon tendon tiger bones. Now that he had undergone the rebirth of a heaven-ranked body-tempering cultivation technique, his defense and toughness had increased significantly. Xiao Chen urgently needed to know how strong his defense was. That way, he would be able to deal with it more easily in battle. Xiao Chen knew which attacks he needed to dodge and which he did not need to dodge. He could take advantage of the situation to counterattack, achieving an unexpected result in battle. Lu Yu did not waste any more time. He got into a stance and prepared to attack. Since Xiao Chen requested it, Xiao Chen would let him do as he pleased. However, he still held back 40 to 50% of his strength. If he really killed Xiao Chen, it would be hard to explain himself. He just wanted Xiao Chen to suffer a little and not be so arrogant. "Hu Qi!" Lu Yu shouted and his suppressed aura burst forth. A strong wind blew. When his aura surged, the fallen leaves and dust on the ground were instantly blown up. Lu Yu stepped forward and punched Xiao Chen's chest with a surging fist wind. Bang! As expected, Xiao Chen did not get knocked back. Instead, it was Lu Yu who felt like he had punched a pile of steel. It was extremely painful. When Lu Yu saw the calm and unmoving Xiao Chen, his face filled with shock. How can this be? Although I did not use my full power in this attack, It should be more than enough to deal with an inferior grade martial king who is 2 grades lower than me. Furthermore, the most important thing was that Lu Yu did not feel any fluctuations of Xiao Chen's essence. That was to say, Xiao Chen had relied on his physical body to block this punch. Xiao Chen frowned slightly and said, "Why did you not use your full power?" Lu Yu took 3 steps back and said with a grave expression, "In that case, as you wish. Don't blame me for being too heavy-handed." Lu Yu raised his aura to its peak and shouted. He leaped into the air and punched. Strong essence infused his hand. A long mark appeared in the air, giving off a piercing sonic boom. Its aura was very horrifying. Xiao Chen's expression turned grave. He circulated his vital qi and prepared to receive this punch. Boom! When the fist wind struck Xiao Chen's body, it gave off a thunderous explosion. Xiao Chen's body shook, but he did not move his feet in the end. The surging essence exploded in Xiao Chen's chest. Under the pain of the shockwave, Xiao Chen's clothes and hair fluttered continuously. Xiao Chen closed his eyes and felt the situation in his body. He discovered that his internal organs had moved slightly, but there were no major problems. Xiao Chen's bones and flesh had blocked most of the force from the essence. He had managed to block this punch. Xiao Chen opened his eyes. He did not want to waste any more time. He continued, "This time, I will continue to use my full power. You can use your martial techniques now. Let's start with the yellow-ranked martial techniques first." The rank of the martial techniques slowly increased. Before Lu Yu's somewhat numb expression, Xiao Chen raised it to a superior grade earth-ranked martial technique. After that, he infused his state into it. After testing it a few more times, Xiao Chen felt fatigued and called for him to stop. After testing it out, Xiao Chen had an accurate understanding of his bottom line. Without using his state, he could easily block a superior grade earth-ranked martial technique's attack. After using his state, if he continued to block it head-on, it would be significantly easier. At most, he would be severely injured after 3 times. "Receive another punch from me, and you can leave. Remember to defend with all your might. Do not be careless." Lu Yu nodded and crossed his arms. He was no longer as careless as before. The other party had given him too much of a shock. If he got careless, he might end up suffering significant injuries. Xiao Chen clenched his fist tightly, and his bones crackled. He started to gather all the vital qi in his body. A purple qi whirlpool spun quickly, and essence flowed through his wide meridians and into his palm. After his meridians were widened, the amount of essence that he could instantly move was more than 20% more than before. This gave Xiao Chen a pleasant surprise. "Xiao!" Without any pause, Xiao Chen clenched his fist tightly. The instant his vital qi and essence merged, he punched out. Xiao Chen wanted to know how strong he could burst out with his current strength in the shortest time possible. Boom! An overwhelming force surged over. Lu Yu felt his arms tremble, and a huge force knocked him into the air. So. Lu Yu flew back several dozen meters. After he landed, he took a few more steps back before he managed to stabilize himself. Lu Yu felt pain in his hands. Both of his arms had been fractured. His bones had snapped in half. He would need at least half a month to recover. Lu Yu's expression was somewhat horrified. He thought to himself, "That's 350,000 kilograms of force. This fellow did not even have time to store up energy." Unexpectedly, he managed to unleash 350,000 kilograms of force in one go. In the end, I still underestimated him. If he had used all his might to defend, his arms would not have fractured. This deal was a complete loss. Widening my meridians can indeed increase my explosive power. In the past, I could only unleash 250,000 kilograms of force by merging my vital qi and essence. Now, it has increased by 100,000 kilograms of force. The firmament body tempering art truly lives up to its name as a heaven-ranked body tempering cultivation technique. Xiao Chen revealed a joyful smile. When Xiao Chen saw Lu Yu's broken arms, he took out 3,000 medial-grade spirit stones and said, "Sorry for injuring you. Consider this a small compensation." Lu Yu's pale complexion finally revealed a smile. He swept the spirit stones into his spatial ring and said, "Thank you, brother. Goodbye." After that, Xiao Chen flew off to find someone to reconnect Lu Yu's bones. Xiao Chen looked outside the courtyard and muttered, "It will be the 17th the day after tomorrow. With my current strength, I should have a 50% chance of defeating Jiang Zimo. I think I should be strong enough to make a trip to the Clear Spring Inn." However, before Xiao Chen went, he had to settle something first. He had to get an ancient desolate pass. Xiao Chen now understood the importance of an ancient desolate pass. Not only did he need it to pay taxes in the city, but he also needed it to do business in the shop. Even now, he had to pay a lot more spirit stones to stay in this cultivation courtyard because he did not have an ancient desolate pass. Xiao Chen finally understood the inconvenience of not having an ancient desolate pass. After calling over a maid, Xiao Chen asked for the location of the Heavenly Extermination Union in the city. Then, he immediately left the cultivation courtyard. In an inn in Heavenly Spring City, the green-robed man and Qin Pengyu were currently chatting at a table on the second floor. "This brat has been hiding in the cultivation courtyard for almost a month. I wonder how much longer he will have to hide. If the Holy Fire Manners people find him first, he will have nothing left." The green-robed cultivator drank a large mouthful of wine as he spoke somewhat depressedly. Qin Pengyu, who sat opposite the green-robed man, appeared rather indifferent. He smiled coldly and said, "Don't worry. The Holy Fire Manor will not look for him immediately. He cannot possibly remain in the cultivation courtyard forever." After they parted ways with Xiao Chen that day, the two immediately sought out a local intelligence clan. They spent a large sum of money to obtain information on Xiao Chen's whereabouts. After that, they waited for a long time. The green-robed cultivator smiled sinisterly and said, "Although my state of water has not reached its limits in 1 month, I have cultivated the medial-grade earth-ranked autumn water art to the 7th layer. If I meet this brat again, I will be able to deal with him in 10 moves." Chapter 427. When Qin Pengyu heard this, he was slightly startled. Medial-grade earth-ranked cultivation techniques normally only had 7 layers. If that was the case, the other party had cultivated a medial-grade earth-ranked cultivation technique to the limit. This is not easy to deal with. Although the superior-grade earth-ranked cultivation technique I cultivate has 9 layers, I have only cultivated it to the 8th layer. There is still a gap between me and the 9th layer. Given this, I do not have much of an advantage in terms of cultivation technique. I can only think of other methods. Seeing Qin Pengyu remain silent, the cultivator in green smiled coldly to himself. How could he not know what Qin Pengyu was thinking? The green-robed cultivator tapped his finger on the table a few times. He squinted his eyes and looked at Qin Pengyu. "I advise you not to have any other thoughts. Just obediently kill this brat and split the treasures. Don't forget that this brat has many good things on him." Qin Pengyu smiled embarrassedly and said, "How can that be? You are overthinking. This brat is not that easy to deal with. If he has any other thoughts, both of us will die at his hands." The cultivator in green snorted coldly and said, "It's good that you know." Dong, dong, dong. Just at this moment, a shifty-eyed, skinny man came up to the second floor. He looked around and saw Qin Pengyu and the cultivator in green. He pretended to walk over casually and handed over a note. Then, he wandered around the restaurant twice before slowly leaving. The cultivator in green said, "The people of the Wind Surveillance Hall are really cautious. Even a manservant is so cautious. No wonder they can stand firm in Heavenly Spring City." Qin Pengyu opened the note. After he finished reading it, he revealed a faint smile. "The latest news is that this brat has come out. He is rushing in the direction of the Heavenly Extermination Union." The cultivator in green's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, "This brat should have gone to apply for an ancient desolate pass. Previously, I overheard in the flowing wind pavilion that a white-robed youth did not apply for an ancient desolate pass and ended up losing spirit stones in the great competition." Qin Pengyu used his essence to crush the note into powder. Then, he muttered, "It is more troublesome to apply for an ancient desolate pass in Heavenly Spring City than outside. He has to complete a mission first, and he has to leave the city." The location of the Heavenly Extermination Union's branch in the city was very easy to find. It was just beside the city lord's residence. It was a vast, circular building that was much taller than the city lord's residence. From afar, one would be able to see it with a single glance. However, the city lord's residence could not. Comparing the two, it was clear whose position was higher. Inside the spacious gate there were streams of people, but there were only people going in and no one coming out. Although there were many people, it was not chaotic at all. Every floor above the second floor had 8 doors and windows. Occasionally, cultivators would fly out from them. It looked like this was the exit of the Heavenly Extermination Union. Xiao Chen found a receptionist on the first floor and explained his purpose. The receptionist immediately led him to a counter on the second floor. "Since you want to come to Heavenly Spring City to apply for a pass, then we will follow the rules. You can choose any one of the missions on the wall over there," the old man behind the counter said with an indifferent expression. Xiao Chen looked in the direction of the old man's finger and saw 7 walls of different colors. There were many cultivators gathered in front of each wall. The old man continued, "You are a martial king. There is no need for you to look at the missions on the white walls. You can only choose from the walls behind." Through the receptionist's words, Xiao Chen understood the rules. If he was in a border city of the ancient desolate land, like Underworld City, he would only need to register his identity to apply for a pass there. If one wanted to apply for a pass there, one only needed to register one's identity. After entering the Heavenly Extermination Lake, there were different rules for each place. The rule of Heavenly Spring City was that one had to complete a mission for the Heavenly Extermination Union for free. Of course, the rank of the mission would not be very high. Xiao Chen could not help but feel regret. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. Xiao Chen did not feel any resentment. There were the most cultivators in front of the first white wall. Most of them had low cultivations. They were all martial saints, standing there and watching. Xiao Chen arrived at the second blue wall. Most of the missions on the wall had already been accepted. The remaining ones were all difficult and unrewarding missions. Xiao Chen stared at the wall for a long time. Then, he tore a mission slip that was stuck on the wall. The requirement of the mission was to collect 10 stalks of illusionary een grass. The reward was 500 medial-grade spirit stones. The illusionary een grass was one of the main ingredients for refining the poisoned shadowless pill. A peak rank 6 spirit beast, the dazzling shadow leopard, guarded the area where it grew. The dazzling shadow leopard was not very strong. However, it was good at concealing itself. Furthermore, it usually moved in pairs and was not easy to deal with. The mission was troublesome and the reward was low. As a result, the mission slip had remained on the wall for a few days. However, Xiao Chen did not feel any pressure. He had the help of his spiritual sense. The most troublesome concealment technique of the dazzling shadow leopard was not difficult for him. That dazzling shadow leopard was only a peak rank 6 spirit beast. To Xiao Chen, it was not difficult for him to deal with it. The old man behind the counter received the mission slip from Xiao Chen. The indifferent expression on his face warmed up. He smiled and said, "This is a troublesome mission. However, you have helped us a little. Leave your name and a drop of blood. After you complete the mission, you will be given the pass." After everything was settled, Xiao Chen took the mission slip and descended from the window. The mission slip had the address of the illusionary een grass. It was in the inner valley of the Heavenly Spring mountain range in the west of the city. This saved Xiao Chen a lot of trouble. After Xiao Chen left the city, he rushed towards the Heavenly Spring mountain range. The mission was rather simple, so Xiao Chen did not think of any schemes. He just needed to go there and use his strength to suppress them. Up on the city wall, Qin Pengyu and the cultivator in green watched expressionlessly as Xiao Chen left. The cultivator in green said, "According to the news from the Wind Whispering Hall, this fellow accepted the mission for the illusionary Een grass. We have already confirmed the location. However, this brat's mental energy is very strong. I'm afraid I will be discovered before I get close." The last time the cultivator in green followed Xiao Chen had discovered him in advance. This time, he was somewhat worried. Qin Pengyu took out 2 bottles of medicinal pills and smiled confidently. "I came prepared long ago. This is a medicinal powder refined from sage-tail grass. If you sprinkle it on your body, even a regular martial monarch would not be able to sense it." The cultivator in green immediately revealed a joyful smile. He said, "You are really willing to part with your capital. With this medicinal powder, this brat will definitely die. If I am unwilling to part with the bait, how can I catch a big fish? Let's go. Don't let him get too far behind." The Heavenly Spring mountain range was filled with lone peaks. However, they were not more than 2 kilometers tall. However, the mountain range stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Xiao Chen spent 4 hours before he found the valley where the illusionary Een grass grew. When he scanned it with his spiritual sense, he immediately discovered the illusionary Een grass. What a fellow! There are actually more than 10 dazzling shadow leopard. That is equivalent to a small tribe. No wonder no one came to accept this mission. Xiao Chen withdrew his spiritual sense and exclaimed in surprise. It looked like the cultivators here were all very cunning. However, there were many illusionary Een grass as well. Xiao Chen had more than enough to collect 10 stalks. His efforts were not in vain. In the surroundings of the illusionary Een grass, there were invisible figures moving about in the air. There were not even any footprints on the ground. No one could detect them with their normal senses. This was the dazzling shadow leopard that gave ordinary cultivators a headache. With more than 10 dazzling shadow leopards gathered together, even a half-step martial monarch would find it difficult to deal with them. Xiao Chen had to think of a way to separate them. Xiao Chen casually punched the ground, and rocks of various sizes immediately shot out. Xiao Chen took out a carving knife and started carving carefully. Soon enough, dozens of lifelike stone eagles appeared. Life bestowal spell. Xiao Chen formed hand seals and shouted. The stone sculptures on the ground instantly came to life. They pounced at the group of dazzling shadow leopards. Sha! Sha! There was a lot of noise. When the eagles pounced, the entire group of leopards fell into chaos. 2 dazzling shadow leopards were lured away. By the time the dazzling shadow leopards shattered the eagles, they were already several kilometers away from the valley. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and drew his lunar shadow saber. Boom! 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 There were loud explosions on the ground as electric light flashed. Without the advantage of being invisible and alone, Xiao Chen did not have to spend much effort to kill these dazzling shadow leopard. After 45 minutes, the corpses of 2 dazzling shadow leopards appeared on the ground. Xiao Chen dug out their spirit cores and continued killing dazzling shadow leopards. 4 hours later, there were no more dazzling shadow leopards in the valley. They had all turned into spirit cores in Xiao Chen's universe ring. Xiao Chen took out an inferior-grade spirit stone and quickly replenished his exhausted essence. Then, he started to pick the illusionary Een grass. However, just as Xiao Chen was about to make his move, the massacre throne in his sea of consciousness trembled slightly. Xiao Chen's expression turned grave. He held the lunar shadow saber horizontally in front of him, his face filled with wariness. Xiao Chen scanned the area within a kilometer with his spiritual sense a few times. Finally, he found the hidden Qin Pingyu and the cultivator in green on a towering tree. There were no energy fluctuations coming from the two of them. It looked like they used some kind of medicine to evade the detection of mental energy. Xiao Chen smiled coldly to himself. His spiritual sense was different from regular mental energy. It was like his eyes. Unless one had a special secret treasure, no one would be able to block his detection. Qin Pingyu put away the flashing golden light in his hand and frowned. This fellow is too sensitive to killing qi. He should have discovered us already. It's fine. Now that we are within a kilometer of him, he has no chance to escape. We will crush him head-on. The two of them no longer hid themselves. They spread their arms and leaped off the tree, quickly flying towards Xiao Chen. So. The two of them flashed in the air a few times. In 3 breaths of time, they covered the distance of a kilometer. The cultivator in green looked at Xiao Chen and smiled coldly. I have been waiting for you for a long time. You are destined to regret not killing me that day. Xiao Chen ignored the cultivator in green's words. He looked at Qin Pingyu, who was beside him. The dart that Qin Pingyu used that day had left a deep impression on him. If it were not for the blood flame shoes that could increase his speed, Xiao Chen would not have been able to dodge it in a short time. However, with the force of his saber, he should be able to deflect that dart. Qin Pingyu said indifferently, "Little brother, hand over the peak high-rank blood demon and the secret treasure, and you may leave. You are so young and have such a cultivation. Your future is bright. You have to know that a dead genius is no longer a genius." Xiao Chen smiled gently and said, "A dead genius is indeed no longer a genius. However, you are not qualified to say that.